Chapter 2962. With a whistling sound, Li Zhen appeared out of thin air. Yuan Changtian was stunned at first and couldn't help looking behind Li Zhen. Seeing no one else, he breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Elderly, you came at the right time." He was delighted. After all, Li Zhen was also an elder of Yuan's sect, nominally on the same side as him. With his presence, he could restrain Ji Shanhai. But Li Zhen said expressionlessly, "Elder Yuan, if you insist on fighting for this opportunity, I have no choice but to do it." Yuan Changtian was stunned and his joy disappeared. He frowned and said, "You and I are both from Yuan's sect. Are you going to kill each other?" Li Zhen said, "I'm here to help Lin Sun fight for the opportunity. I have the same idea as Miss Shanhai." Yuan Changtian's face darkened. Lin Sun again. No matter how good-tempered and shrewd he was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. He said, "Elderly, for Yuan's sect, if you and Miss Shanhai join hands to deal with me, it will be a betrayal. Do you know the consequences?" Li Zhen said, "When this opportunity falls into Lin Sun's hands, the sect will understand that what I'm doing is not a betrayal at all." Yuan Changtian's heart sank. He realized that Li Zhen could no longer be persuaded. "Now, are you going to stay here or leave?" Ji Shanhai asked. Yuan Changtian's heart was filled with anger, and he had the urge to go berserk. He was the first to discover this opportunity, but now, someone else was going to beat him to it. When Yuan Changtian was about to say something, Li Zhen kindly reminded him, "Elder Yuan, Song Fufeng and Wen Xiaoshui have been suppressed by Lin Sun. If you wait any longer, you will only be isolated and helpless." They were defeated by Lin Sun? Yuan Changtian's pupils shrank. Yes, they were defeated by Lin Sun when they tried to prove their Tao. Li Zhen seemed very frank. But his answer was like a knife stabbing into Yuan Changtian's heart, leaving him dumbfounded. Without Song Fufeng and Wen Xiaoshui, who could stop Ji Shanhai and Li Zhen in the heavenly demon territory, all of a sudden, Yuan Changtian completely realized that the situation was not good, and his heart fell to the bottom. It was over. Whoosh, whoosh. Another sonic boom rang out. Moon in the Well and Tan Luyun teleported over. When Yuan Changtian sensed the transcendent realm aura emanating from both of them, his heart trembled, and he calmed down from his rage. He took a deep breath, appearing to admit defeat as he cupped his hands and said, "I will take my leave now." He turned to leave. "Wait," Ji Shanhai said. At the same time, Moon in the Well and Tan Luyun blocked Yuan Changtian's path, without anyone noticing. "Miss Shanhai, what is the meaning of this?" Yuan Changtian's heart sank. "Don't worry, so long as you cooperate, no one will harm a single hair on your body. However, you can't leave this place before this divine level order is taken away." Ji Shanhai's face was as calm as still water, and his voice was indifferent. Yuan Changtian was both shocked and furious. "Miss Shanhai, you were the one who asked me to leave, but now you want me to stay? What kind of person do you take me for?" No matter how shrewd he was unable to restrain the rage in his heart at this moment, and he even felt an unprecedented feeling of humiliation. The dignified divine son of the Yuanshi clan was treated like this. This was a feeling he had never experienced before. Ji Shanhai didn't seem to care about Yuan Changtian's grievance at all. He said indifferently, "You have probably guessed that Lin Sun has yet to prove his Tao and break through to the next realm. If I let you leave now, what if you harm Lin Sun?" "For Lin Sun again." Yuan Changtian almost couldn't help but curse. Why did everyone seem to be doing things for Lin Sun? Was Lin Sun so charismatic? He said with a livid face, "You are the descendants of the spirit sect. Even if you are willing to give up such an opportunity, aren't you worried that the spirit sect will hold you accountable?" Ji Shanhai looked at the bronze seal in the distance and said, "Elder Li Zhen, please go and invite Lin Sun to come here as soon as possible." Li Zhen nodded and turned to leave. From beginning to end, Neither Ji Shanhai nor Li Zhen paid any attention to Yuan Changtian. The feeling of being ignored made Yuan Changtian's cheeks burn. Unprecedented anger surged in his heart like a landslide and a tsunami. He didn't feel good at all. This is too much. This is too much. Yuan Changtian tried his best to restrain himself. Otherwise, he was worried that he would explode without a care for anything else. After a long time, Yuan Changtian took a deep breath and gradually regained his composure. Jing Zhongyue and Tan Luyun saw the whole scene and couldn't help but be surprised. This guy could endure so much. This made them admire him a little. As the divine son of the eternal God clan and a peerless figure who could be said to be heaven-defying, Yuan Changtian's ability to endure was undoubtedly astonishing. Since I no longer have a chance, I won't be so stubborn. Yuan Changtian's voice was calm. However, I would like to see if Lin Sun can take the divine level order away. What if he can? Jing Zhongyue asked. Yuan Changtian smiled. That would be even better. Anyway, Lin Sun and I are both from the Yuan clan. No matter how unwilling I am to let him take the opportunity, I have to be happy for him. Hypocrite. Ji Shanhai made a cold comment. Yuan Changtian's expression froze. He shook his head with a wry smile. Not long after, Lin Sun and Li Zhen flew over from afar. Lin Sun couldn't help but be moved when he saw the bronze seal floating above the mountains and rivers in the distance. A complete divine level order. But soon, he looked at Yuan Changtian with a strange expression. Elder Yuan, I heard that you were the first to discover this opportunity. I really have to thank you for your noble character and unquestionable integrity for taking the initiative to give up this opportunity. As he spoke, he cupped his hands at Yuan Changtian. Yuan Changtian's suppressed anger and grievance were stirred again. He took a deep breath and squeezed out a smile. Brother Lin, don't tease me anymore. I admit defeat. When you take the divine level order away, you must treat me to a drink. Lin Sun also smiled. I finally understand that Elder Yuan was right. A lack of forbearance in small matters will spoil great plans. I can't help but admire Elder Yuan's ability to maintain his composure at this moment. Yuan Changtian's smile stiffened. He was trying hard to control his emotions. Otherwise, he would have vomited blood. Lin Sun, hurry up. Ji Shanhai said softly. Li Zhen, Jing Zhongyue, Tan Luyun, and the others also looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. He wanted to ask why Ji Shanhai chose to do this, but he seemed to understand immediately. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He walked straight forward. On the way here, Li Zhen had already told him how to subdue a divine level order. After standing quietly for a long time until his mind and thoughts were clear and ethereal, Lin Sun released his qi, cultivation, and willpower. At this moment, Ji Shanhai, Jing Zhongyue, and the others couldn't help but feel a little nervous. It was the first time they had seen such a great opportunity since they started cultivating. They had never had any experience in subduing a divine level order before. Therefore, they didn't know whether Lin Sun, who hadn't reached the transcendent realm, could obtain the approval of this divine level order. Yuan Changtian was also paying attention. He naturally didn't want Lin Sun to obtain this divine level order. Time passed little by little. Lin Sun stood still. The divine level order in the shape of a bronze seal in the distant sky didn't change at all. However, Lin Sun's eyebrows gradually furrowed. He felt resistance. The aura of order emanating from the bronze seal kept rejecting and resisting his aura. This method won't work. Lin Sun spoke after a while. Everyone was confused. It won't work? A hint of joy flashed in Yuan Changtian's eyes. Brother Lin, you are someone with the potential of an immortal supreme. How can you say that you can't? There's still a long time. Why don't you give it a try? Li Zhen and the others glared at him. How could they not hear the ridicule in Yuan Changtian's tone? However, Lin Sun smiled and said, Elder Yuan is right. It's impossible to obtain such a rare opportunity so easily. As he spoke, he rose into the air and stood under the sky, releasing his chi. Boom! His entire body glowed, and his aura penetrated the 9 heavens and 10 earths. An immortal divine halo appeared behind him, and a vast and boundless willpower formed within it. At this moment, he released all of his cultivation without holding anything back. The aura emanating from his body caused the heavens and earth to dim, and the mountains and rivers to tremble. Even though Ji Shanhai, Jingzongyu, Li Zhen, and the others had already attained the transcendent realm, they couldn't help but feel astonished when they sensed the aura emanating from Lin Sun. Too strong. Was this the true embodiment of an immortal supreme's power? Even Yuan Changtian's pupils shrank. He only had one thought in his mind. Fortunately, he didn't have a conflict with Lin Sun in the past. Otherwise, he would have been the one to lose in a battle of the same realm. In the next moment, under everyone's gaze, Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grabbed the air. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Was he going to forcefully subdue the divine level order? Boom! The bronze seal started rumbling violently, and countless dense light of order emerged. Its power was too terrifying, and the entire world seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Ji Shanhai and the others stiffened. Once the divine level order's power erupted, they wouldn't be able to withstand it even with their transcendent realm cultivation. However, as Lin Sun's palm fell, the originally violent rumbling bronze seal calmed down. Without any resistance, it was controlled by Lin Sun's palm. Swish! In the next moment, the bronze seal flew into Lin Sun's palm. It was only the size of a fist, and it was shrouded in a dense glow. At this moment, it seemed extremely docile. This change happened so quickly that Ji Shanhai and the others were stunned. They couldn't believe it. It was subdued just like that? Yuan Changtian almost jumped up. How was this possible? Why was the divine level order so easily subdued? If this was the case, if Yuan Changtian had wanted Lin Sun to do the same, would he have obtained the divine level order as well? An indescribable unwillingness struck Yuan Changtian's mind. His face uncontrollably darkened, and he gritted his teeth in hatred. How could this be? Chapter 2963. Lin Sun calmly sensed it. The bronze seal was filled with obscure fluctuations of the power of order. It was mysterious and unpredictable, giving people a feeling that even if the world was destroyed, it could still exist forever. Thinking of the process of subduing this divine level order, Lin Sun was in a trance. He only subdued the bronze seal with his immortal law. He did not expect that the bronze seal would suddenly become docile when it sensed his immortal law aura. It was incredible. Could it be related to my immortal law and the mystery of Nirvana order? Lin Sun pondered and put the bronze seal into the abyssal sword cauldron. Suddenly, a shocking scene happened. The bronze seal roared, as if awakened from eternal silence. It shone brightly and sprinkled a dense rain of order light. At the same time, the lotus pattern of Nirvana order appeared, releasing mysterious fluctuations of power and suppressing the bronze seal. At this moment, the abyssal sword cauldron shook violently and buzzed. Lin Sun's divine sense was cut off, and he could no longer sense the situation inside the abyssal sword cauldron. He could not help but be surprised. Even when he subdued the purple-green gourd, it did not cause such a huge commotion. Boom! The abyssal sword cauldron buzzed even more violently, making Lin Sun feel like he could not control it. Ji Shanhai and the others also noticed Lin Sun's situation and could not help but be startled. What was going on? Not only them, but even Lin Sun himself was extremely surprised. After a long time, the abyssal sword cauldron gradually calmed down. Lin Sun immediately probed the abyssal sword cauldron with his divine sense and saw that the fist-sized bronze seal was covered in the Nirvana order, buzzing constantly as if it was cheering. This, Lin Sun was stunned. Wu Shuang's clear voice sounded, "Master, where did you get this divine level order?" It's a newly born divine level order with infinite potential. Her eyes were sparkling, and her voice was filled with amazement. Lin Sun said, "Infinite potential? What do you mean?" "Master, the profundities contained within the divine rank order in the world are all related to the eternal Tao. Their order energy is no different from the energy of laws. The order energy that Master has subdued contains a strand of the most primitive eternal Tao. However, it has just been born after all, and it's like a youth with a blank sheet of paper. It possesses limitless potential that can be unearthed." Wu Shuang spoke swiftly. Presently, this divine rank order has already been subdued by the rebirth order, and it has taken the rebirth order to be its parent. This also means that its potential will obtain ceaseless rebirth and reconstruction, and in the end, it will transform into various unbelievable grand Tao profundities. Lin Sun could not help but be shocked when he heard that. "You're saying that the power of the Nirvana order is able to undergo Nirvana and reconstruct a God-level order like this?" In the past, he had speculated many times that it was extremely likely that the Nirvana order was a God-level order. However, he had never expected the Nirvana order to be so powerful that it could allow a God-level order to undergo Nirvana. Wu Shuang said seriously, "Master, when Shuang Er was at his peak, he was no weaker than a god level. The implication was that even she could obtain the Nirvana and reconstruction of the Nirvana order. This had already fully proved the extraordinariness of the Nirvana order." Lin Sun nodded and said, "According to what you said, this god-level order is currently undergoing a nurturing and transformation in the Nirvana order?" Wu Shuang said, "That's right. So, I won't be able to use it in a short period of time?" Lin Sun asked. Wu Shuang said, "Master, there's no need to be anxious. The greatest power of a God-level order lies in the eternal Tao it contains. When Master proves the eternal Tao in the future, you can refine it and condense it into your own eternal rule power." After a pause, she continued, "Of course, Master can also leave this God-level order behind. In this case, it will be enough to establish an eternal force in the future." Lin Sun thought of the ninth heaven. The reason why the 12 eternal gods were able to exist for countless years was that each of them possessed a god-level order power. For example, the 4 great ancestral halls each had a god-level order power as the cornerstone of their sections. Only then could they transcend the world. This was the value of a god-level order. Lin Sun pondered and said, "Since this God-level order has just been born and has endless potential, why don't we call it Absolute Beginning?" "Absolute Beginning." Wu Shuang smiled sweetly and said, "Master, you finally came up with a good name." Lin Sun glared at her angrily. Then, he put away the abyssal sword cauldron and floated down from the void. "What do you think?" Ji Shanhai couldn't help but be curious. "A newly born God-level order has great potential," Lin Sun said. Ji Shanhai said, "You have to be careful in the future. A God-level order is like the top treasure in the world. It's enough to make the gods of the ninth heaven fight crazily for it. After leaving the 10 Directions demon territory this time, you'd better return to the Yuan sect as soon as possible." Seeing this peerless fairy who was the only one in the world so concerned about Lin Sun, Li Zhen, Jing Zhongyue, Tan Luyun, and the others all had a strange expression on their faces. Yuan Changtian was filled with hatred and jealousy. Yes, jealousy. He hadn't experienced this feeling for a long time, but at this moment, he couldn't help but feel jealous. The God-level order was obtained by Lin Sun, and even the beauty was so fond of Lin Sun, while he could only watch as a loser. How could he feel good? At this time, Ji Shanhai finally looked at Yuan Changtian, but what she said was like a heavy blow to Yuan Changtian's head. "Now you can leave." Her understatement almost made Yuan Changtian, who was already in a very bad mood, collapse. She wanted him to stay, and she wanted him to leave? What had he become in Ji Shanhai's eyes? Did he have any dignity or face left? Yuan Changtian dared to swear that this was definitely the most humiliating day he had ever been since he started cultivating. But in the end, he still left. He didn't say a word. After being hit to such an extent, no matter how shrewd he was, no matter how strong his state of mind was, he couldn't control himself and was about to go berserk. Watching his figure gradually disappear, Jing Zhongyue couldn't help but sigh softly. This guy is too patient. He doesn't give us a chance to deal with him at all. It's more useful to keep him alive than dead. Lin Sun said with a smile. I may not be able to help you when you leave. Ji Shanhai said. There was only 1 month left before the end of the Immortal Tao battle. After leaving the 10-direction magic territory, Lin Sun's situation would become extremely dangerous. This time, he not only killed the 10 immortal giants, the witchcraft cult and the Zen cult, but also got the god-level order. These things were bound to be hidden. If the old monsters waiting outside knew about it, how could they swallow their anger? The most dangerous thing was that the 10-direction magic territory was very close to the ancestral court of the witchcraft cult. Once the big shots of the witchcraft cult wanted to keep Lin Sun at all costs, the consequences would be extremely serious. When it came to leaving, everyone's expression became serious. Only Lin Sun said with a smile, "We'll deal with it when it comes. You don't have to worry about it." Everyone knew that it was useless to talk about it now. No one knew how the situation in the outside world would change. But one thing was for sure. Yuan cult would never let Lin Sun suffer in front of the witchcraft cult. What's more, Lin Sun still had the lives of Wen Qiaoshui and Song Fufeng in his hands. This was enough to make the witchcraft cult and the Zen cult hesitate to take action. As for the 10 immortal giants, would they really dare to fall out with Yuan cult? This was also a problem. What do you plan to do next? Ji Shanhai asked. Cultivate. Lin Sun said, there's still 1 month left. We can't waste it. Ji Shanhai was startled and said, I didn't expect you to be calmer than I thought. Lin Sun smiled. Next, Ji Shanhai arranged for Jing Zhongyue and Tan Luyun to leave and protect Pu Songzi and Lu Yufeng. The two had been cultivating in silence and would soon make a breakthrough. Ji Shanhai and Li Zhen stayed. Lin Sun was a nirvana god realm perfected after all. They had to be wary of Yuan Changtian taking the risk to attack Lin Sun while he was cultivating. Time flew by in a hurry. In the following period of time, Lin Sun completely refined all the divine-level sequence fragments on him. Finally, he decided to refine those 9th-level heaven-level sequences. At present, he had more than 10 9th-level heaven-level sequences on him. Among them were the sequences he collected in the 8th heaven, the 9 flying swords he snatched from Song Fufeng, and the spoils of war he seized from Wen Qiao sailor. Lin Sun didn't realize that he had reached the limit of what he could bear until he had refined 2 9th-level heaven-rank oracles. If he continued to refine it, he would only be wasting such a treasure of the heavens and the earth. It was also at this time that Lin Sun felt the opportunity to prove his Tao and break through. It was extremely strong. He was ready to make a move. On this day, there were only 2 days left before the end of the Immortal Tao battle. Lin Sun stood up. His mind was unprecedentedly calm. As for proving his Tao and breaking through the realm, he didn't force it, nor did he force it to stay. It was natural. Ji Shanhai and Li Zhen were both alarmed. They subconsciously looked up at the sky. The ink-black tribulation clouds quietly covered the blue sky. It was heavy and oppressive, as if the day had fallen into the endless night. Lin Sun was going to prove his Tao and break through. Ji Shanhai and Li Zhen looked at each other and stood up to avoid it. Their hearts couldn't calm down. 10 years. From the Nirvana early stage to the Nirvana great perfection. Now, in more than 10 years, Lin Sun would prove his Tao and transcend. All of this was like a miracle. The oppressive aura of destruction began to spread between heaven and earth. The surroundings were silent, making it hard for people to breathe. Both Ji Shanhai and Li Zhen had proven their Tao and broken through not long ago. They had also experienced great tribulations. However, when they felt the aura of heaven's retribution that belonged to Lin Sun, they couldn't help but be moved. So strong. It was unprecedentedly terrifying. The aura made them, who already had transcendent realm cultivation, feel a piercing chill. In the distance, Jing Zongyu, Pu Songzi, Tan Luyun, and Lu Yufeng happened to be rushing over. When they saw the tribulation clouds in the sky, they couldn't help but be stunned, and their hearts trembled. How could they not guess that this was Lin Sun's tribulation for breaking through? However, no one expected that Lin Sun's cultivation would break through so quickly. It was shocking and unprecedented since ancient times. Chapter 2964. The atmosphere was oppressive and chilling, which made people panic. Jing Zhongyue and the others all came to the nearby area, and they all looked solemn. They all passed the test in the heavenly demon territory, and they also noticed that the breath of the tribulation against Lin Sun was very unusual. It was so horrible that it had a strange breath. But Lin Sun seemed to be fine. He walked up to the sky, his clothes fluttering, and he looked very handsome. Finally, he stood under the tribulation cloud in the sky, took out the wine gourd, and drank a lot. Then he took a long breath and said with a smile, "Don't panic, everyone. Today's tribulation should be nourishment for me to help me build the way of transcendence." His relaxed voice resounded through the world. Everyone seemed to be disturbed by the confidence and arrogance in Lin Sun's words, and they relaxed a little. Boom! But the thunder in the depths of the tribulation cloud in the sky seemed to be enraged, and suddenly sounded, shaking the 9 heavens and 10 earths, making the mountains and rivers tremble. On the clouds, electric arcs appeared, spreading in all directions, and the ink-stained sky seemed to be torn apart. Then a dazzling thunder tore the thick tribulation cloud and fell. It was a strange grayish-white, like a divine spear of the great law, which seemed to be able to cut through time and space. It was unparalleled. Everyone present only felt a stinging pain in their eyes, and they couldn't help but feel terrified. This kind of tribulation was too horrible. Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grabbed the thunder in his hand, as if he had caught the weak point of a wild snake, and the dazzling lightning reflected Lin Sun's figure. Bang! 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 The thick and terrible grayish-white thunder exploded in Lin Sun's palm, turning into a colorful rain of lightning. Lin Sun's figure surged with the laws of the Grand Tao that were obscure like an abyss, and he instantly absorbed these bolts of lightning and refined them. A wave of crackling and exploding resounded from his skin as the bolts of lightning shot about chaotically. Not only was he completely unharmed, he instead obtained a type of baptism from the tempering of the bolts of lightning. This inconceivable scene caused Ji Shanhai, Moon and Jing Zhongyue, and the others to be stunned. Could it be done like this? The way Lin Sun destroyed the thunder was too easy and casual, which formed a strong contrast. Boom! Tribulation clouds surged, surging like a tide. The destructive aura between heaven and earth became more and more terrifying. In that instant, hundreds to thousands of streaks of lightning radiance appeared, not hacking over, but smashing down. It was too ferocious, appearing in large amounts, directly submerging this place. This caused the hearts of Ji Shanhai and the others to tremble. What kind of strange tribulation was this? How could it be so terrifying right from the start? To their astonishment, Lin Sun just sat cross-legged in the void in the face of such a thunder test. A great abyss appeared around his figure. This was the development of his cultivation. At this moment, he began to guide the lightning tribulation to refine himself. This was a test of life and death. If it was an ordinary person, they would have turned into ashes long ago. Any single bolt of lightning could kill an existence at the perfected nirvana god realm. This was a heavenly punishment that had not appeared for many years. However, Lin Sun viewed this as an excellent tempering. He used his own cultivation, transforming the lightning radiance for his own use, gathering the power of lightning. At first, he felt extremely comfortable, his skin sparkling and translucent, full of essence energy. He could clearly feel himself becoming stronger. But soon, he could no longer remain calm. His entire body was covered with too many lightning arcs, and it was difficult to completely refine them in a short period of time. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and the abyss around him suddenly turned into a cauldron, suppressing all the tribulation thunders in the surroundings into the cauldron. This was the great wave furnace scripture that he created. At this moment, Lin Sun was suppressing the lightning tribulation and using it to refine himself. This caused everyone to be stunned. This was truly abnormal. In the midst of a peerless thunder test, he was actually suppressing the lightning tribulation to refine his body. This was simply unimaginable. But Lin Sun soon tasted the bitter fruit. This feeling was too unbearable. He was drowned by lightning, and even the great wave furnace scripture couldn't resolve it. Pooh! He was struck to the point that blood spurted out of his mouth, his flesh was torn, and his entire body was charred black. However, compared to these injuries, there was also a new force nourishing his injured body and refining his cultivation with the lightning. At this moment, Lin Sun was still sitting cross-legged with a solemn expression. All his pores were shining, and lightning arcs were flickering. This was a kind of destruction and also a kind of tempering. Outside his body, the immortal light sometimes transformed into a great abyss, and sometimes into a furnace, suppressing and refining the lightning tribulation without stopping. Finally, thousands of lightning bolts passed, and Lin soon made it through this round of bombardment. However, this was only the first round. Soon, there was another roar in the depths of the tribulation clouds, and there were billions of lightning bolts pouring down. It was a vast expanse of whiteness, as if to drown the world. Ji Shanhai and the others had to stay far away. This time, the lightning was like a sword, extremely bright. It constantly slashed down, shining, and filled with monstrous murderous intent. Lin Sun's cross-legged meditating figure was completely submerged. His body constantly showed signs of cracking and collapsing, but it quickly recovered, as if he was performing the reincarnation of destruction and rebirth. On the other hand, his cultivation was constantly being tempered and strengthened. This was the supreme yang lightning, which was of great benefit to the Taoist body and spirit. It could transform the Taoist body and make the spirit more transparent and brilliant. The blazing lightning shone in the sky, falling like a waterfall, vast and boundless. In the eyes of Ji Shanhai and the others, Lin Sun was simply too horrible to look at. His head was broken and bleeding, and he was seriously injured. His body was constantly split open and blood splashed. However, his spirit was highly condensed, and there was a stream of essence in his body, emitting blazing brilliance. This was like refining immortal gold, removing the impurities and retaining the essence, to forge the sharpest and most powerful weapon in the world. This was the real tempering of life and death, using the peerless heavenly tribulation to temper one's body and soul, and to achieve a real transformation. Boom! The world roared, and the lightning was endless. It was not until a long time that it finally calmed down. Lin Sun sat there from beginning to end and was not killed. After experiencing this round of lightning tribulation, his cultivation had achieved a transformation. His Taoist body was bright, his spirit was clear, and his aura was far better than before. When they saw this scene, Ji Shanhai and the others calmed down a little. However, they also noticed that the heavenly tribulation was still there, and it was not over yet. The next tribulation was bound to be more terrifying and strange. This made them sweat for Lin Sun. Boom! Sure enough, after a short silence, another lightning tribulation descended. Just like this, Lin Sun encountered great trouble. In the following time, he actually continuously passed the tribulations, and each time it lasted for a long time. After counting carefully, he actually passed 9 kinds of heavenly tribulations. Some of the lightning tribulations turned into clouds that covered the sky, showing different colors, magnificent, resplendent, and blazing, illuminating the world with a brilliant atmosphere. Some of the lightning tribulations turned into the figures of ancient gods, driving chariots and holding heavenly halberds, like a mighty army of gods, attacking Lin Sun. Some turned into chapters of the great Tao, and the light covered the 9 heavens and 10 earth, and the rolling thunder directly acted on the soul. Some turned into, every single scene could be said to be strange and unheard of, and it caused the hearts of Ji Shanhai and the others to be ceaselessly impacted. They were unable to imagine how such a calamity could exist in the world. But Lin Sun was able to tenaciously resist the round after round of the lightning tribulations, which also shocked them to the extreme. All this was easy to say, but in fact, it was like fighting between life and death. Just now, Lin Sun's body was chopped into pieces countless times, and the worst time, his spirit was chopped into pieces and almost completely disappeared. But in the end, he struggled through it. Until the end of the 9 lightning tribulations. Clang! In the middle of Lin Sun's eyebrows, a little spirit man walked out, opened his mouth and inhaled. The clouds all over the sky shook, and countless lightning bolts surged from all directions. The dense thunder chi enveloped him. This was the dispersed heavenly tribulation. He didn't waste any of it and didn't let go. Both his body and spirit were shrouded in lightning, absorbing the rare tribulation light together. Lin Sun clearly felt that both his body and spirit seemed to have been reborn. This was an unimaginable baptism. At this time, the chi in Lin Sun's body was moving rhythmically, making a clanging sound like metal. The virtual world in his body was like the vast chaos, and there was infinite power boiling and roaring in it. His cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes. He sat here with his legs crossed, and his whole body was gushing with Taoist light. There was a rumbling sound coming from his body, resounding through the world, as if the ancient gods were chanting sutras. All kinds of strange scenes shone around him. He was like the most powerful god in this world. He accepted the worship of all spirits and chanted sutras here. Ji Shanhai and the others looked at this scene in a trance, as if they were witnessing an unprecedented miracle. This was a sacred scene. Soon, the transformation of Lin Sun's body seemed to reach a critical point. His whole body kept trembling, and the roar was like thunder, deafening. Then it could be clearly seen that his Taoist body was cracking. This was not destruction, but like a snake shedding its skin, or a cicada shedding its shell. Cutting off the past body and building a new body was a kind of rebirth. In addition, what Ji Shanhai and the others couldn't see was that Lin Sun's spirit was also cracking and then reshaping. This repeated destruction and rebirth, nirvana, and metamorphosis, constantly repeated. This process lasted for a full day. When this nirvana, towards the end, Lin Sun, who was sitting cross-legged, had completely changed his appearance. His body was slender and strong, and his skin was as transparent as jade. Sitting cross-legged under the sky, he was like the sun shining alone in the world, sacred and supreme, transcending all living beings. When Lin Sun opened his eyes, the divine light was like a sword, sharp and oppressive. But soon he became calm again, and all the aura of his body was converged in his body, returning to the original state. It seemed that there was no difference from before. But everyone knew that after experiencing this unprecedented and strange disaster, Lin Sun's body and spirit had undergone a deep level of tempering and sublimation, completed one transformation after another, and entered the transcendent realm in one fell swoop. What was transcendence? It was not bound by the rules of the era, transcending the great way and immortal. Only by reaching this realm could one be called a real mighty on the immortal way. He was no longer afraid of the oppression and constraints of the rules of heaven and earth. With his own strength, he could walk in different eras. In the world where the eternal realm did not appear, the transcendent realm was the supreme existence in the world. and Lin Sun proved his Tao and transcended today. P.S. There will be an update tonight. Chapter 2965. Under the Sky. Lin Sun stood up and was in a trance. In just 10 years, he had entered the Nirvana Great Perfection realm from early Nirvana realm. Now, he was in the Transcendent realm and was no longer bound by the rules of heaven and earth. Before coming to the Immortal Tao battle, Lin Sun didn't even dare to think about it. Lin Sun, have you consolidated your cultivation? Ji Shanhai's voice sounded in the distance. Lin Sun nodded. During the Thunder Retribution, he regarded the Thunder Retribution as a form of training. His cultivation had been tempered and transformed many times. Even if he just stepped into the Transcendent realm, his foundation was still very solid. You guys come together, Ji Shanhai suddenly said. The next moment, Tan Luyun, Pu Songzi, and Lu Yufeng broke through the air and rushed towards Lin Sun. Lin Sun was stunned. What are they doing? Junior brother, they are helping you get familiar with the power of the Transcendent realm. In the distance, Moon In Well grinned and said, this will allow you to control and unleash the power of this realm faster. He looked like he was watching a show. Lin Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Boom. Not far away, Tan Luyun and the others had already rushed over. Each of them was intertwined with divine power. The power drawn by their every move was far beyond the Nirvana realm. Looking closely, when they attacked, Tao followed them, and the power was born from their hearts. It was as if they were above this world, with a kind of transcendent momentum. The immortal law mastered by each of them had completely transformed, and the power contained in it was more than twice as powerful as the Nirvana realm. A simple punch seemed to be imprinted with thousands of methods and Tao. The power alone was enough to shock the mind and make the Nirvana realm desperate. This was not an exaggeration. The power of the Transcendent realm was not bound by the rules of heaven and earth. It was the supreme power of the immortal Tao. Tan Luyun, Pu Songzi, and Lu Yufeng were all old monsters of the spirit sect. Although they had just reached the Transcendent realm like Lin Sun, their fighting skills were extraordinary. At this moment, they attacked together, causing Ji Shanhai and the others to become serious. How could Lin Sun resist and resolve such an attack? Lin Sun stood still, but there was an invisible power of law intertwining around his body, like an unfathomable abyss. He was clearly standing there, but the feeling he gave off was as if he had transcended beyond the heavens. The attacks of Tan Luyun and the other two were extremely overbearing and powerful. However, before they could reach Lin Sun's figure, they were neutralized by that layer of invisible power of rules. It couldn't even touch his clothes. The pupils of Tan Luyun and the others constricted, and they didn't hesitate to attack once more. They either pressed down with palm prints, slashed furiously with sword chi, or blasted with secret technique. The dazzling power of laws illuminated the sky, and a terrifying aura of destruction spread out. The power of this siege was enough to make anyone in the same realm pale. But all these attacks were still wiped out by the power around Lin Sun. He just stood there, not moving in the slightest, as firm as a boulder, unshakable. Ji Shanhai, Jing Zongyu, and Li Zhen couldn't help but be surprised. How could they not see that although Lin Sun, Tan Luyun, and the others were in the same realm, there seemed to be a huge gap between their strengths? The three of you, please give it your all. Don't hold back. Lin Sun said seriously. Tan Luyun, Pu Songzi, and Lu Yufeng looked at each other, took a deep breath, and fully unleashed their transcendent realm power. Boom. Finally, Lin Sun's figure was shaken, and the power of laws around his body fluctuated violently. But Tan Luyun and the others couldn't be happy. They could only shake the power of laws around Lin Sun with their full strength. If Lin Sun attacked, how could they be his opponent? The gap was too huge. It made these old monsters feel stifled. It seems that the three of them won't be enough to test Lin Sun's strength. Ji Shanhai's clear eyes were filled with thoughts. I'll go too. As Li Zhen spoke, His figure soared into the sky and joined the battle. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel helpless. The reason why he didn't make a move was because he was in a dilemma. If he immediately suppressed Tan Luyun and the others, it might affect their fighting spirit. If he held back and deliberately showed weakness, it would seem like he didn't respect them. So, he stood there without moving from the start of the battle, trying to make them stop while they were ahead. But he never thought that even elder Li Zhen would join in now. "Senior, you're putting me in a difficult position." Lin Sun smiled bitterly. "If you don't want to put us in a difficult position, show us your real strength and let us see how powerful you are in this realm," Li Zhen shouted. Seeing this, Lin Sun no longer hesitated. He took a deep breath before his figure suddenly flashed, and a peerlessly copious and terrifying aura seethed and emanated from his body. The obscure power of the great Tao interweaved and caused the heavens and the earth to darken as if they were swallowed by the aura on his body. It was strange and unfathomable. Almost at the same time, Li Zhen, Tan Luyun and the others all felt a palpitation. The oppressive force that came to their faces gave them the illusion of suffocation. At this moment, Lin Sun's momentum was too strong, as if he was above the world and had the momentum of a king. Boom! When Lin Sun struck with his palm, Li Zhen and the others felt as if the hand of God had descended, making them feel small, helpless, and irresistible. The power of this palm went straight to their hearts, shaking their state of mind and destroying their fighting spirit. Swish! A divine arrow broke through the air and hit Lin Sun's palm fiercely. When the two collided, the divine light suddenly burst and spread, setting off chaotic torrents all over the sky. Then, Moon Jingzongyu's fierce and thin figure appeared in the field. He smiled and said, "Junior brother, do you mind if I join in?" Lin Sun looked at Moon Jingzongyu, and then at Li Zhen and the others. A trace of fighting spirit was ignited in his pair of abyss-like eyes, and he said, "In that case, I won't stand on ceremony." He stepped into the air and took the initiative to attack. His tall figure flowed with hundreds of millions of obscure light rain. He was like the legendary Dominator on an expedition. His power was unbelievably tyrannical. Moon Jingzongyu and the others didn't dare to be negligent. They attacked with all their strength and fought fiercely. Boom! A fierce battle broke out. With the addition of Moon Jingzongyu, everyone was finally able to compete with Lin Sun. As an opponent, Lin Sun felt it most clearly. They were both in the transcendent realm, but Moon Jingzongyu's cultivation was obviously stronger than Tan Luyun's. Elder Li Zhen's cultivation was equal to Tan Luyun's. However, only when they joined forces could Lin Sun feel a certain amount of pressure. He didn't hold back and fought with them. In an instant, the mountains and rivers resounded, and the heavens and earth trembled. It was a chaotic scene. But after a short while, Ji Shanhai joined the battle too. Lin Sun finally felt a great pressure. This wasn't the work of Ji Shanhai alone. Instead, it was the combined power of all of them. It was too strong. After all, none of the opponents here were ordinary figures. When they were in the Nirvana realm, they were far from being comparable to ordinary figures in the same realm. Now that they joined forces, the power of their siege was unimaginable. Boom! Under such circumstances, Lin Sun also completely released his cultivation. He pointed at the sky and hit the ground, and fought fiercely with everyone. Soon, Tan Luyun was the first to be unable to bear it. He smiled bitterly and retreated from the battlefield. Lin Sun's combat power was too abnormal. Up until now, the more he fought, the stronger he became. Tan Luyun's qi and blood were surging, and he was suppressed everywhere. There was no possibility for him to fight back. Following that, Pu Songzi also let out a long sigh and left the battlefield. His experience was the same as Tan Luyun's. Not only was he unable to restrain Lin Sun in the battle, but he was also suppressed by Lin Sun, causing others to have no choice but to help him. Gradually, Liu Yufeng and Li Zhen also retreated. Their situation was similar to Pu Songzi and Tan Luyun. Only Jing Zhongyue and Ji Shanhai were still fighting with Lin Sun. Seeing this scene, Tan Luyun, who was watching from afar, couldn't help but murmur, "The immortal sovereign's path is indeed beyond our reach. It's too abnormal." Everyone else felt the same. They had also stepped into the transcendent realm. They boasted of their strong foundation and solid cultivation. However, in the battle against Lin Sun, they were completely overshadowed. Pu Songzi sighed. With his current cultivation, even a transcendent intermediate powerhouse might not be able to do anything to him. They were knowledgeable and had seen many transcendent realm powerhouses over the years. With a slight comparison, they knew that although Lin Sun had just achieved transcendent realm, his cultivation was tyrannical enough to compete with transcendent intermediate realm characters. However, this was a kind of cognition and comparison based on past experience. They didn't dare to make a judgment on how strong Lin Sun was and what level of powerhouse he could compete with. After all, Lin Sun was walking on the immortal sovereign's path. It couldn't be measured by common sense. After a while, Lin Sun suddenly said in the battle, "Senior brother, Miss Shanhai, can we stop here?" As he spoke, he retreated far away. Jing Zhongyue obviously wanted to continue, but he also knew that if the battle continued, Lin Sun might not lose, but he might not be able to bear it. Lin Sun stopping the battle at this time was obviously to save face for his senior brother. "You're still holding back." Ji Shanhai's gaze was a little complicated. She clearly felt that even at this moment, Lin Sun hadn't revealed his true combat power. Even when they attacked together, they couldn't force Lin Sun to use all his strength. With a slight comparison, it was obvious who was superior. "I just broke through the realm, so I won't be able to hold on for too long," Lin Sun said with a smile. The battle was over. Lin Sun began to meditate cross-legged, further consolidating his cultivation. As he said, he had just achieved transcendent realm. As for the mystery and potential of this realm, he still needed to further explore and temper. However, through the battle just now, Lin Sun had a rough understanding of the level of his current combat power. The others couldn't calm down. "Are all the descendants of Fangtsuan Mountain so powerful?" Tan Luyun couldn't help but ask. He almost accidentally said the word abnormal just now. Jing Zhongyue thought for a while and replied seriously, "Not many, but definitely not few." The others looked at each other, and they couldn't calm down anymore. Ji Shanhai suddenly said, "The immortal Tao battle will come to an end tomorrow. When you leave, everyone should be careful." Jing Zhongyue and the others were shocked. More updates. Chapter 2966. Outside the demonic 10 realms. Yuan schools Fang Daoping, Spirit schools Qingyun, Zen schools Kasayapa, Voodoo schools Zhu Wenheng, and the 10 immortal giants transcendent realm old monsters all looked towards the void. A whirlpool gate quietly floated there. The atmosphere was stifling and silent, because today was the day the eternal law battles would come to an end. Everyone was clearly aware that the outcome of the eternal Tao battles this time would be completely different from the past, and it was even to the extent that it was very likely for an unexpected event to occur. Time ticked by. Finally, the motionless whirlpool door suddenly trembled slightly, and a figure walked out from it. It was Yuan Changtian. Yuan Shilu immediately welcomed him with anticipation. "Young Elder Yuan, how was your harvest this time?" Yuan Changtian shook his head gloomily. "Don't ask any more questions." The humiliating experience of snatching a god-level order still haunted him to this day. Every time he recalled the scenes from that time, he felt indescribably humiliated and resentful. Yuan Shilu was startled. He keenly sensed that there was something wrong with Yuan Changtian's state of mind. He couldn't help but frown. The other old monsters looked at Yuan Changtian coldly. Their eyes flickered, but no one showed any hostility. After all, Yuan Changtian is from the 9th heaven. He is the god-child of the eternal god clan. Although he is representing the Yuan sect this time, No one will treat him as a member of the Yuan sect. Young friend, may I ask who obtained the divine rank order? Ancestor Wenheng of the voodoo cult asked softly. At the mention of this, Yuan Changtian felt agitated and frowned. Lin Sun. Lin Sun. Everyone was in disbelief. How could it be him? Even Fang Daoping was stunned and extremely shocked in his heart. According to his predictions, Ji Shanhai, Wen Qiaoshui, and Song Fufeng were the most promising candidates for the God-level order. But who would have thought that the final winner was Lin Sun? How is this possible? Can you tell me in detail what happened at that time? Zhu Wenheng asked. Yuan Changtian's expression darkened. Was he trying to expose his own scars and embarrass himself? To him, what happened at that time was the most humiliating moment of his life. How could he stab his own heart with a knife in front of everyone's eyes? You should ask Lin Sun, snorted Yuan Changtian. All of them were old freaks who had lived for countless years. They could tell at a glance that Yuan Changtian had lost in the fight for the deity-level order. That was why they were so upset. Someone asked, "Little friend, were the participants of our 8th Heaven's top 10 sects killed by Lin Sun?" Yuan Changtian nodded. The faces of the 10 undying giants sunk. So it was like that. Little friend, who killed the participants of my Zen sect? Supreme Buddha Kasyapa asked. Yuan Changtian said expressionlessly, Lin Sun. Kasyapa chanted the name of Buddha and said no more. Were the participants of our witchcraft cult also killed by Lin Sun? Zhu Wenheng couldn't help but ask. Yuan Changtian nodded. He was in a bad mood, so he tried not to speak when he could. But his answer still caused a commotion. Lin Sun. This name was like a thorn that pierced into the hearts of all the big shots present. Fellow Taoist Fang, what else do you have to say? In my opinion, Lin Sun is vicious. He deliberately took this opportunity to kill the other participants. Zhu Wenheng pointed at Fang Daoping with a murderous look. Fang Daoping said, "As I said, casualties are inevitable in the immortal Tao battle. What's more, if it weren't for those participants deliberately making trouble, I'm afraid so many disasters wouldn't have happened." Ridiculous. Zhu Wenheng's face was cold. In the immortal Tao battle, competition and battles are inevitable. But if Lin Sun had a little conscience, there wouldn't have been so many casualties. Fang Daoping said indifferently, "It's boring to talk about this and I don't want to argue about it. If you intend to take this opportunity to harm Lin Sun, you are making an enemy of our Yuan sect." Everyone's face was uncertain. Haha, the deity-level order has fallen into Lin Sun's hands, so your Yuan sect naturally has to protect him. However, don't scare us with these words. It's not good for anyone if we really fall out with each other. Zhu Wenheng sneered. Someone suddenly said, "If the deity-level order really fell into Lin Sun's hands, doesn't it mean that Ji Shanhai, Wen Qiaoshui, and Song Fufeng, the 3 divine sons, were also defeated?" Everyone couldn't help but look at Yuan Changtian. Yuan Changtian's heart skipped a beat, but he said expressionlessly, "Wen Qiaoshui and Song Fufeng are in a very miserable situation. Not only did they not achieve transcendence, but they were suppressed by Lin Sun one by one." Everyone's face changed. They were shocked by this news. Among them, Zen sects Kasyapa and witchcraft sects Zhu Wenheng were the most furious. Wen Qiaoshui represented the Zen sect, while Song Fufeng represented the witchcraft sect. Both of them came from the 9th heaven, and each had an eternal god clan behind them. But now, they had suffered in the immortal Tao battle. If their clans knew about this, the Zen sect and witchcraft sect would be implicated. This bastard! Zhu Wenheng cursed in a low voice. Kasyapa also had a cold expression on his face. They could bear the death of the participants of their respective forces, but if Wen Qiaoshui and Song Fufeng's lives were in danger, they were destined to face the wrath of the Wen and Song families. At this time, the old monsters of the 10 immortal giants were shocked. Lin Sun was simply insane. He actually dared to attack the 9th heaven's divine sons? Fang Daoping and Qin Yun glanced at each other, the worry in their hearts growing stronger and stronger. What about Miss Shanghai? Someone asked. Miss Shanghai is naturally safe, Yuan Changtian said. Moreover, she is very magnanimous. She clearly had the opportunity to seize the deity-level order, but she gave it to Lin Sun. Everyone was startled and bewildered. Ji Shanhai is the pearl of the eternal god clan's Ji family, a famous goddess in the ninth heaven. If they really compare their status and identity, Yuan Changtian, Song Fufeng, and Wen Xiaoshui are all inferior. As for a fairy like her, how could she possibly give away the god rank order? Fang Daoping's face sank, and he said, Elder Yuan, please pay attention to your words. Do you know how much trouble your words will bring to Miss Shanghai? The deity-level order is too important. If the Ji family knew that Ji Shanhai gave such an opportunity to Lin Sun, they would probably be furious. And Yuan Changtian revealed this news in public. Obviously, he has sinister intentions. I'm just telling the truth. If you don't believe me, wait for Miss Shanhai to come out and ask her personally. Yuan Changtian said. I can see that you can't accept all of this. I'm also very puzzled. I don't know why Miss Shanhai did this. Fang Daoping's face became gloomy again. Yuan Changtian is indeed an elder of the Yuan sect, but more importantly, he is from the ninth heaven's eternal god clan. If it were any other descendant of the Yuan sect who dared to say this, they would have been killed on the spot by Fang Daoping. At this moment, in the vortex passage, some figures walked out one after another. At the front was a tall figure in a plain wide-sleeved dress. It was Ji Shanhai. Behind her were Jing Zhongyue, Tan Luyun, Pu Songzi, Lu Yufeng, and others. Behind them were Lin Sun and Li Zhen. When they saw this scene, all the old monsters felt very uncomfortable. Among the forces participating in the immortal discussion this time, only the Spirit sect had no casualties. Even the Yuan sect had 3 participants who walked out at the end. Only the participants from these forces were almost completely annihilated. With a kind of anger, hatred, and killing intent, these old monsters looked at the same person at the same time. Lin Sun. As if he had already expected such a scene, Lin Sun's expression was very calm and unperturbed. However, when he and Li Zhen were about to walk towards Fang Daoping, they were scolded. Lin Sun, stop right there. It was Zhu Wenheng who spoke. His face was cold. We all know what happened in the 10 Directions demon territory. Now, do you admit your crime? His voice was like thunder, and a terrifying pressure immediately locked on Lin Sun. Taoist Zhu, what do you mean by this? Fang Daoping immediately stood out and said coldly, do you really intend to shed all pretense of cordiality? So what if we shed all pretense of cordiality? 4 of our participants were killed, and even Song Fufeng was suppressed by him. No one knows whether he's dead or alive. Lin Sun must be handed over to the witch sect, Zhu Wenheng said coldly. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. No one expected Zhu Wenheng to be so impatient. If the witch sect intends to break the rules of the immortal discussion, then the spirit sect will not allow it. At this moment, Qin Yun also stood out with a calm expression. Before the matter is resolved, Lin Sun indeed cannot leave. Zen Sex Kasayapa put his palms together and said in a deep voice. This was also equivalent to expressing his position. That's right. Lin Sun is insane, cruel, and rampant. Others can leave, but not him. Fang Daoping, if you really want the Yuan sect's good, I advise you not to interfere. Otherwise, not only Lin Sun, I'm afraid even you won't be able to leave today. Qin Yun, you can't represent the entire spirit sect. This matter has nothing to do with your spirit sect. You'd better take your people and leave now. The old monsters of the 10 immortal giants all spoke out. The starry sky became oppressive, and the murderous aura surged. Ji Shanhai saw this scene and frowned, but he didn't say anything. Moon in the Well was the same. He was calmer than anyone else, but no one knew what he was thinking. Yuan Changtian and Yuan Shilio watched this scene from afar, and their eyes flashed with cold light. In this tense atmosphere, Lin Sun smiled and said, I knew it would be like this. If you still want Wen Xiaoshui and Song Fufeng to live, you'd better get out of the way now. Otherwise, if you provoke me, I can do anything. As he spoke, he took out the abyssal sword cauldron and glanced at the cauldron. Song Fufeng's angry voice came from the cauldron. Ignore me, everyone! Hurry up and kill this Lin. Wen Xiaoshui also sighed softly. Brother Lin, if you let me go now, I guarantee in the name of the Wen clan that you can leave this place alive. The two's attitudes were obviously different. But seeing this scene, who didn't know that the lives of the two divine sons were firmly in Lin Sun's hands? As long as he was willing, he could kill the two divine sons at any time. This made Cassiopeia, Zhu Wenheng, and the others shocked and angry. A little later on. Chapter 2967. While the old monsters were furious, Lin Sun grabbed Song Fufeng's primordial spirit. Should I let him go or not? Lin Sun asked. Zhu Wenheng wanted to slap Lin Sun to death. His killing intent surged. Lin Sun, if you do this, the Song clan will hate you to the core. Slap. Lin Sun slapped Song Fufeng's face. The latter was so angry that he hissed, kill this bastard. His voice spread across the starry sky. However, Zhu Wenheng didn't dare to act rashly. Even the others didn't dare to. If Song Fufeng died here, they would all be implicated. If we waste any more time, this guy will only suffer more humiliation. I'm afraid he won't be able to raise his head in the future, Lin Sun said calmly. What will make you let him go? Zhu Wenheng suppressed his murderous intent and asked. When I return to Yuan sect safely, I'll let him go, Lin Sun said casually. Daoist Fang, is Yuan sect still going to protect this boy at this time? Zhu Wenheng said coldly. Fang Daoping said. Our Yuan sect will not abandon the descendants of our sect just because of the revenge from the ninth heaven. Zhu Wenheng sneered. You can't afford the consequences, and neither can Yuan sect. Slap. Lin Sun slapped Song Fufeng again. The latter was about to go crazy and roared. I said, I let you do it. Do it? Zhu Wenheng didn't dare to act rashly. He could see that not only Lin Sun, but also Fang Daoping didn't care about the consequences of offending the Song clan. Finally, Zhu Wenheng took a deep breath, gritted his teeth and made a decision. Move. He dodged to the side. If you had done this earlier, this guy wouldn't have had to suffer those two slaps. Remember, he was humiliated because of you. Lin Sun smiled and stuffed Song Fufeng's primordial spirit into the abyssal sword cauldron. Zhu Wenheng's chest heaved up and down. He was obviously angry. What about you, will you let him go? Lin Sun looked at Cassiopeia. Let him go. Cassiopeia was very calm as he said, Lin Sun, it doesn't matter if you die. However, if you bring the primordial spirits of the two divine sons back to the Yuan Church, you will be inviting disaster for the Yuan Church. You will implicate many people in the Yuan Church. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. It doesn't matter what disaster it is. Fang Daoping said. I, Fang Daoping, only know that the successor of the Yuan sect is trying to leave today, yet he is being deliberately obstructed. I will seek an explanation for this matter in the future. His words were calm, but they were extremely domineering. These words warmed Lin Sun's heart. In such a situation, who wouldn't be moved that Fang Daoping could make such a stand as a deputy pavilion master? Cassiopeia didn't say anything else and stepped aside. What about you guys? Lin Sun looked at the old monsters of the 10 immortal giant. At this moment, these old monsters' faces were extremely ugly. Song Fufeng and Wen Xiaoshui's lives had nothing to do with them. However, if the two divine sons were to suffer because of their obstruction, then it would be related to them. In the end, they gave in. Lin Sun, you and Yuan Church will definitely pay for what happened today. Everyone in your Fangtsuan mountain will suffer. These old monsters could only use this to vent their inner hatred and unwillingness. Hearing this, Lin Sun said indifferently, "Since you said so, I might as well be frank. Sooner or later, I will set foot on the 8th heaven and visit your clans." As he spoke, he and Li Zhen walked towards where Fang Daoping was. No one stopped them. Even if those old monsters wanted to kill Lin Sun, they had to swallow their anger because of Wen Qiao Shui and Song Fufeng. When Lin Sun and Li Zhen approached, Fang Daoping was completely relieved. He looked at Qingyun in the distance and said, "If you have time in the future, remember to come to Yuan sect to drink tea with me." Qingyun smiled and nodded. "Senior brother, Miss Shanhai, take care." Lin Sun also said goodbye to Jingzongyu, Ji Shanhai, and the others. "Be careful on the road, they won't stop just like that," Jingzongyu warned. Lin Sun nodded. "Don't forget about my sister," Ji Shanhai said seriously. Lin Sun also agreed seriously. "Everyone, we will leave first." Fang Daoping's gaze swept across the crowd, then he left with Lin Sun and Li Zhen. As for whether Yuan Changtian and Yuan Shiliu wanted to leave, he was too lazy to care. "Goodbye." Qingyun also left with Ji Shanhai and the others. Watching their figures disappear, Zhu Wenheng took a deep breath and said, "Brother Kasyapa, how do you think this matter should be resolved?" Kasyapa said calmly, "I think that in the eyes of the Tsang and Wen clans, the divine order may be more important than their divine children." This sentence caused the eyes of everyone present to flash coldly. "Everyone, we will leave first." The old monsters of the 10 immortal giants immediately left in a hurry. It seems that they have also made a decision. Zhu Wenheng's eyes were deep. "Taoist Kasyapa, what does your sect plan to do?" Kasyapa said, "It will take at least half a month to reach Yuan sect's ancestral court from here. If Fang Daoping and the others encounter any accidents, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with us." Zhu Wenheng said, "Yes, some bad things, as long as they don't happen in front of our sect, even if they are asked, it has nothing to do with us. Goodbye." Kasyapa turned around and left. Zhu Wenheng took a deep breath and suddenly looked at Yuan Changtian and Yuan Shiliu, who were still in the distance. "Are you two going to watch the show, or do you want to get involved?" "Not getting involved." Yuan Changtian shook his head and left with Yuan Shiliu. Zhu Wenheng watched them leave and couldn't help but sneer. Would the Yuan clan be willing to stand by and watch a complete divine order power? "Young master, are we really not getting involved?" Yuan Shiliu couldn't help but ask along the way. Yuan Changtian said casually, "Ancestor, do you remember what I told you to do before coming to the Immortal Tao battle?" "Of course." Yuan Shiliu did not hesitate. At that time, Yuan Changtian had ordered him to contact people in the Eternal Realm so that if Lin Sun returned to Yuan clan alive, they could kill him. At the time, Yuan Shiliu thought that Yuan Changtian was making a mountain out of a molehill. But now it seemed that Yuan Changtian's judgment was right. Lin Sun had really left the 10 Devil territory alive. Now the situation has changed. Lin Sun has become the prey in the eyes of all the major forces. We can't miss this chance. Yuan Changtian's eyes were full of killing intent, Ancestor. I remember that when you left the clan, you took a secret treasure with you that could contact my father immediately. Yuan Shiliu was shocked. "Young master, what are you going to do?" Yuan Changtian said word by word, "Ask the old antiques of the clan to kill Fang Daoping and his people halfway." Yuan Shiliu's eyes flashed and he said, "Young master, if this matter is leaked, I'm afraid it will affect your plan to get Pavilion Master Yuan Qing. That's why we have to kill them all." Yuan Changtian said, "In this way, the death of Song Fufeng and Wen Qiaoshui can also be blamed on Lin Sun, or even Mentor Yuan. In short, it has nothing to do with us." Hearing this, Yuan Shiliu immediately took out a secret treasure and started to act. At the same time, in the starry sky, Fang Daoping, Li Zhen, and Lin Sun all moved at full speed. "A few days ago, I have used a secret method to contact the sect. If there is no accident, our people will meet us in 3 days at most. Then we will be completely safe. Fong Daoping transmitted his voice quickly. 3 days. I'm afraid those enemies won't be so patient to wait for 3 days to catch up. I even suspect that they have started to act as soon as we left. Li Zhen frowned. Fong Daoping said calmly, "It's okay. I'm here if there is some disturbance." He knew very well that even if Lin Sun controlled the lives of Wen Xiaoshui and Song Fufeng, those enemies would never give up. The reason was very simple. The temptation of the divine order was too great. It was so great that any force would snatch it at all costs. Previously outside the Ten Devil territory, the witchcraft cult, Zen cult, and other forces chose to retreat because the situation at that time was not suitable to act directly. Otherwise, they would definitely be punished by the Tsang clan and the Wen clan. But it was different now. If something happened to them on the way, even if Wen Xiaoshui and Song Fufeng died, the Eternal God clan behind them could not blame the witchcraft cult, Zen cult, and other forces. It's a pity that the 3 pavilion masters of our Yuan clan can't go out. Otherwise, any one of them could easily solve the crisis in front of us. Fong Daoping sighed softly. Pavilion Master Yan Ji's state of mind had problems. Pavilion Master Yuan Qing Tai Xian was dealing with him in the Mystery Enlightenment and did not care about worldly affairs. Pavilion Master Yuan Qing Yu Beihai was preparing for the Eternal Tao. There had been no news of the sect master for many years. Because of this, there had been so many internal and external troubles in the Yuan clan. For example, those immortal realm forces had even infiltrated every aspect of the Yuan clan. Lin Sun, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, "Senior, the situation is not at the end of the line. As long as they dare to catch up, no one can stop us unless they have the power of the Eternal Realm. Once the Eternal Realm people go out, they will definitely suffer the backlash of the rules of heaven and earth, which will cause great damage to their cultivation." Fong Daoping said, "Even if such people really want to get involved, they will at most send out a Dharma form. Although it is a big threat to us, it is not fatal." Hearing this, Lin Sun could not help but look at Fong Daoping. Obviously, Fong Daoping should have a trump card that could resist the power of the Eternal Realm Dharma form. Fong Daoping said, "In fact, in the battle between the 4 great ancestral halls, no one will play the card of the Eternal Realm unless they have no other choice. Because if they do so, it is equivalent to completely falling out with the 4 great ancestral halls, and it will completely trigger a war between the 4 great ancestral halls. No one can stay out of such a disaster." As soon as he said this, the nearby starry sky suddenly trembled violently. Countless stars swayed as if they were about to fall, and a terrifying cold, killing intent swept over like an avalanche. Lin Sun, Fong Daoping, and Li Zhen all felt a chill in their hearts. Those guys came really fast. P.S. It's too late today, I will update tomorrow. Chapter 2968. The escaping lights were like rain, and the void rumbled violently. A group of dazzling figures that resembled gods appeared. They were the 10 immortal giants, old monsters. Each of them had transcendent realm great perfection cultivation. In terms of cultivation, none of them were inferior to Fong Daoping. When they appeared, a surging pressure swept towards Lin Sun and the others like an overwhelming force. "Fong Daoping, as long as you leave the deity-level order behind, we can give you a chance to live." The leader was an old monster from the Wang family. His name was Wang Zhongyuan. He had white hair and a willow beard. He looked thin, but his aura was the strongest among them. The other old monsters were filled with murderous intent, and their aura locked onto Lin Sun and the others. "After 3 breaths, we need a clear answer." Wang Zhongyuan's voice was calm and powerful. Obviously, he didn't intend to waste any time. "Senior, how many can you deal with?" Lin Sun asked directly. 4. Fong Daoping didn't hesitate. "Enough." Lin Sun made a decision. "Senior Li Zhen, please retreat for this battle." As he spoke, He grabbed Li Zhen's arm and put her into the abyssal sword cauldron. From the beginning to the end, Li Zhen didn't have the time to refuse. Fang Daoping was stunned. He planned to stay behind and restrain his opponents, creating a chance for Lin Sun and Li Zhen to escape. But now, Lin Sun made a decision in advance. Witnessing this scene, Wang Zhongyuan and the other old monsters looked at each other and attacked without hesitation. Boom! Wang Zhongyuan waved his hand and summoned a sword. He led the other 7 transcendent realm great perfection existences towards Fang Daoping. Capture the ringleader first. As long as they dealt with Fang Daoping, Lin Sun, who had just achieved transcendent realm, was just a bug in their eyes. Before coming to chase after them, Wang Zhongyuan and the others had already discussed their battle strategy. Once they made a move, they would completely eliminate the threat. Fang Daoping. Kill! The other 7 transcendent realm existences brandished their battle spears, ancient seals, Dao diagrams, bronze bells, jade plates, cauldrons, jade rulers, and other treasures. All of them were the strongest life Dao soldiers in their hand. They were radiating with radiance, and the radiance they released was terrifying. For a time, this starry sky surged up and down like the surface of the sea. The void collapsed piece by piece, and countless stars exploded into pieces in a series of explosions. The destructive torrent of the Great Path was like a raging sea, sweeping out at this moment. As the deputy pavilion leader of the Yuan clan, Fang Daoping was naturally not an ordinary cultivator of the same realm as him. As soon as the battle broke out, a long saber as thin as a cicada's wing appeared in his hand. It was snow-white. Whoosh! Even though he was besieged, Fang Daoping did not dodge or evade. He directly rushed forward. His thin figure suddenly erupted with a terrifying light of the Great Path, and his might pierced through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Clang! Wang Zhongyuan's slash was immediately deflected. Fang Daoping's figure had already taken advantage of the situation and rushed forward. The snow-white long saber made a clear sound, releasing countless dense saber auras. It was overbearing and sharp, containing the law power beyond imagination. For a time, the siege of Wang Zhongyuan and the other 8 transcendent realm old monsters could not suppress Fang Daoping. On the other side, 2 old monsters rushed towards Lin Sun. One was an old monster of the Jing clan, named Jing Tuoshan, and the other was an old monster of the Zhongli clan, named Zhongli Qiao. Both of them had the cultivation of transcendent great perfection and had lived for countless years. At this moment, one was controlling a red pagoda, while the other was holding a golden whip. They attacked Lin Sun together with a pincer attack, holding a golden whip. Boom! The pagoda soared into the sky and the law roared. It was as if it wanted to suppress the sky, and its power was terrifying. Zhongli Qiao's golden whip was even more strange and terrifying. It was like an omnipotent divine chain of order. Every time it lashed, the void would shatter violently. It was fierce and domineering. If it were any other transcendent realm initial powerhouse, they would be unable to resist and would be easily killed. Naturally, Lin Sun would not sit still and wait for death. Boom! The abyssal sword cauldron soared into the sky, and his cultivation was also operating to the extreme. When the sword cauldron collided with Jing Tuoshan's pagoda, Lin Sun was not pushed back. This made Jing Tuoshan's pupils shrink. He originally thought that dealing with a young man who had just broken through the realm would be a piece of cake. But now Lin Sun, with the cultivation of transcendent early stage, forcefully blocked the attack of his transcendent great perfection. This was unbelievable. Swish! But at the same time, a long whip like a golden divine chain appeared out of thin air and tied Lin Sun up with a slight twist. A cold light flashed in Zhongli Qiao's eyes. He shook his wrist, and the bound Lin Sun flew towards him uncontrollably. He stretched out his right hand and was about to grab Lin Sun's neck and capture him alive. At this moment, boom! 5 great Tao bodies rushed out and each of them shone brightly. They used their strongest techniques and attacked Zhongli Qiao like 5 gods crossing the sky. This change was extremely fast, but Zhongli Qiao's reaction was not slow. He directly used a secret method, and his right hand condensed a light curtain barrier made of dense power of law. It was placed horizontally in front of him. Unfortunately, he had no idea how powerful Lin Sun's cultivation of transcendent early stage was. He also didn't know that each of the 5 great Tao bodies was not weaker than Lin Sun himself. At this moment they attacked together, and the distance was very close. How could a light curtain that he cast out in a hurry be able to resist? Then, a loud explosion was heard. The light curtain directly burst into pieces like a piece of paper, and countless light rains splashed. Zhongli Qiao's face suddenly changed. It was too late to dodge, and he could only fight with all his strength. Boom! Sounds of collision that shook the heavens and the earth resounded. Under the joint attacks of the 5 Taoist bodies, Zhongli Qiao's defenses were actually blasted apart, and his Taoist body that was comparable to the eternal and indestructible Taoist body was blasted into pieces, causing blood to spray into the surroundings. And the golden whip, which had lost control, could no longer bind Lin Sun himself, and was directly pushed away by Lin Sun himself. Boom! As soon as he broke free, Lin Sun used the Gate of Exile's magical power, turned into a light shadow, and merged into the abyssal sword cauldron, and smashed it down. How could Zhongli Qiao, who was already heavily injured, block such an overbearing attack? The moment he was suppressed by the abyssal sword cauldron, his figure disappeared into thin air, and was suppressed into the Gate of Exile. A series of scenes happened almost in one go. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. Jing Tuoshan, who was far away, saw Lin Sun being trapped by the golden whip and thought that the outcome was set. However, he never expected the following scene to allow Lin Sun to turn the tables around. Instead, Lin Sun annihilated a transcendent realm great perfection like Zhongli Qiao. When he saw Zhongli Qiao's figure disappearing into thin air, Jing Tuoshan was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. How did this happen? Who would dare to believe that a young man who had just entered the transcendent early stage could eliminate a transcendent realm great perfection existence that had lived for countless years in a split second? This scene also caught the attention of the old monsters who were besieging Fang Daoping. Their pupils shrank and their expressions changed. Before they made their move, they all thought that Fang Daoping was the biggest threat. As such, they spent all their efforts on dealing with Fang Daoping. Who would have thought that Lin Sun, who they treated as a lamb to be slaughtered, would actually kill one of their companions right after the battle started? Send 2 people to deal with Lin Sun. The rest of you, use your full strength and quickly suppress Fang Daoping. Wang Zhongyuan yelled. 2 old monsters immediately left and rushed towards Lin Sun to support Jing Tuoshan. From that moment onwards, the old monsters from the 10 immortal giants no longer held back, and displayed all their skills and technique. Rumble! The starry sky seemed like it was about to collapse. Countless Tao lights clashed against each other, and all sorts of Tao soldiers that could burn mountains and boil seas danced in the air. Each of them released an immortal and monstrous might, as if gods were fighting. That scene was too terrifying. The transcendent realm stood at the pinnacle of the immortal path. They were no longer restrained by the rules of the world, and the power they possessed was enough to allow them to run rampant beneath the 9th heaven. In the eternal true world, such an existence was definitely someone that billions of living beings could only look up to and worship. At that moment, the group of old monsters from the 10 immortal giants, Fang Daoping, and Lin Sun were engaged in an intense battle in the starry sky. One could imagine just how destructive the battle was. If it was in any other world, millions of corpses would have already been piled up, and blood would have filled the universe. In such an earth-shattering battle, those old monsters began to feel the threat from Lin Sun. In just a short while, the scene of Zhongli Qiao being suppressed happened once again. Lin Sun's 2 clones, each restrained an opponent, whereas his main body and the other 3 clones besieged Jing Tuoshan. In an instant, Jing Tuoshan was covered in injuries as well, and he was caught off guard by the door of exile that coiled around the abyssal sword cauldron and transformed into a strand of light, causing him to vanish in an instant. This was the second transcendent realm great perfection that Lin Sun had defeated. The method he used to suppress the 2 old monsters, Zhong Liqiao and Jing Tuoshan, caused the old monsters present to shiver in fear. They had never experienced the power of the Gate of Exile before. In fact, they had never even heard of it before. Naturally, they didn't know that using this forbidden power would instantly consume nearly 30% of Lin Sun's cultivation. However, when this power was compressed to the extreme, it could last for an hour. How is this possible? Everyone, be careful. This kid has mastered a forbidden power. Furious shouts resounded throughout the battlefield. The combat power Lin Sun displayed had completely surpassed their expectations. They couldn't imagine how such a young man could kill a transcendent realm great perfection. This was more than just unbelievable. It was simply bizarre. Send 4 more people to deal with this little bastard, Wang Zhongyuan yelled. His face had already turned pale. Whoosh! 4 old monsters immediately rushed over and joined the other 2 old monsters to deal with Lin Sun's main body and the 5 Tao forms. With that, the pressure on Fang Daoping's side instantly decreased. Only Wang Zhongyuan and the other old monster were left. As a result, Lin Sun had become the focus of attention throughout the entire battle. Not only did he kill 2 old monsters by himself, but he also restrained 6 old monsters at the same time. Fang Daoping couldn't help but feel incredulous. Previously, he didn't expect the situation to have such an incredible change. Chapter 2969. Throughout the countless years since ancient times, there had never been an immortal supremacy's path. Even though there were many legends about this path, most of them were proven to be illusory. Until Lin Sun appeared. Many discussions about this path appeared in the eternal true world, but almost all of them were skeptical. It could even be said that in the eyes of most of the experts in the 8th and 9th heaven, no one believed that the lotus that mountain master Fangxuan had been waiting for would become the immortal supremacy's path. Even though Lin Sun had once made a name for himself in the Yuan sect, he was still a peerless genius in the eyes of many people. There were people in the world who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him or even surpass him in the same realm. For example, the 9th heaven's divine sun-level figures. However, at this moment in the battle, these old monsters from the 10 immortal giants had to face this problem. Had Lin Sun really embarked on the immortal supremacy's path? Otherwise, how could he kill everyone in the 10 demonic territories and be invincible? Even the divine sons like Wen Qiao Shui and Song Fufeng were captured by him. How could he kill Zhong Liqiao and Jing Tuoshan, 2 transcendent realm great perfection existences, with his transcendent realm initial cultivation? All of this seemed to be inconceivable and horrifying. Boom! The 6 old monsters attacked Lin Sun and his 5 clones together. They used all kinds of techniques. Some used secret treasures with unfathomable power, and some used their secret technique. A terrifying pressure surged and spread, causing the starry sky to tremble and collapse into chaos. The power that each old monster possessed could easily kill any transcendent realm initial character. But all of this was ineffective against Lin Sun. Not to mention dealing with Lin Sun's main body, even his 5 clones couldn't be suppressed in a short period of time. This caused those old freaks to be shocked, furious, and horrified. They couldn't imagine how a young man who had just broken through the realm could possess such combat power. At this time, Lin Sun also felt a kind of unprecedented fighting desire. The blood in his body seemed to be burning, and his spirit was boiling. His state of mind, will, and thoughts were all stimulated by the surging fighting spirit. His entire body was in a burning fighting state. He hadn't experienced such a battle for a long time. In the past, the opponents he encountered were either too weak, like those in the same realm, or too terrifying, like the eternal realms will and Dharma. But things were different now. He had already achieved transcendence. The old monster in the transcendent realm, great perfection, that used to be high and mighty, could no longer give him a fatal suppression. Kill. Lin Sun's black eyes were like lightning, and his long hair was flying. He, too, didn't hold anything back. He released his combat prowess wantonly. His main body and the 5 Taoist bodies each faced an opponent. Not only did they not fall into a disadvantageous position, but they even seemed to be suppressing their opponents. Those old monsters were about to go crazy. 10 years ago, in their eyes, Lin Sun was just a small potato in the early stage of Nirvana realm. But today, 10 years later, Lin Sun already had the combat power to shake them. The contrast was too great, and the impact was too great. This feeling was like the ants that had been ignored in the past suddenly had the power to slaughter the divine dragons in the sky. It was hard for them to accept this for a moment. Go! In the battle, Lin Sun suddenly shouted, and the abyssal sword cauldron shook the opponent's Tao soldier away. The remaining power of the cauldron didn't diminish and hit the opponent hard. This was an old monster of the Fu clan called Fuzhu, by the abyssal sword cauldron. When the cauldron hit him, the immortal laws on his body were shattered, and a rain of light scattered everywhere. He didn't even have time to dodge, and was swallowed by the door of exile on the abyssal sword cauldron, disappearing into thin air. The 3rd transcendent realm expert was killed. Lin Sun knew how terrifying the world within the door of exile was. No matter if it was Zhong Liqiao, Jing Tuoshan, or Fuzhu, all of their bodies and souls would be destroyed by the corpse-killing disc, and their treasures would be sealed by the cliff of treasures. They were destined to die. The battlefield was in chaos again. The fighting spirit of those old monsters was shaken, and their expressions changed. They couldn't suppress Lin Sun even if they joined forces. All of this seemed to prove that in the transcendent realm of the immortal path, Lin Sun was no different from an immortal sovereign. Damn it! Wang Zhongyuan, who was fighting with Fang Daoping in the distance, also had a livid expression. Undoubtedly, they had miscalculated in this pursuit. Initially, they thought that the biggest threat was Fang Daoping, the deputy pavilion master of the Yuan school. However, a series of cruel reality told them that the real threat was Lin Sun, whom they had previously neglected. What made Wang Zhongyuan's heart heavy was that he and another old monster were being suppressed by Fang Daoping even though they were working together. If it weren't for his ample preparations, secret treasures, and trump cards, he might not even be able to last until now. There was no other reason. Although their cultivation was similar, as a deputy pavilion master of the Yuan school, Fang Daoping's combat power was much stronger than theirs. Go! Lin Sun's voice suddenly resounded from afar. An old monster who was fighting with the Scarlet Fire Taoist body was smashed by Lin Sun with the abyssal sword cauldron. The old monster's body was torn into pieces on the spot, and blood splattered like a waterfall. As expected, the old monster's shattered body and spirit were devoured by the power of the Door of Exile at the same time. This was the 4th transcendent realm great perfection that Lin Sun had killed. At the same time, the scene was completely chaotic. There were only 4 old monsters left who besieged Lin Sun and his 5 clones. Instead, they were besieged by Lin Sun and his clones. On Fang Daoping's side, Wang Zhongyuan and another old monster were not in an optimistic situation either. They were suppressed by Fang Daoping to the point where they couldn't even lift their heads. The situation was completely unfavorable to Wang Zhongyuan and the others. The key to the reversal was Lin Sun. This was a variable that no one expected. Wang Zhongyuan and the others didn't expect it, and even Fang Daoping himself didn't expect it. Go! A familiar voice sounded in the chaotic and turbulent battlefield like a note of death. Lin Sun and the Blackwater Taoist body attacked together and killed an old monster on the spot. This time, when the power of the Door of Exile was released, it only devoured the old monster's shattered body and spirit fragments. How could this be? Some old monsters felt bitter in their mouths, and their scalps were numb. Lin Sun's combat power was too heaven-defying. It couldn't be measured by common sense. At this point in the battle, they were all terrified, and their fighting spirit was shaken. Kill! Some old monsters seemed to be in a frenzy, desperate and full of blood. They were fighting with their lives on the line. Whatever trump cards, all of them were taken out without hesitation. Unfortunately, all of them were useless. At this moment, Lin Sun fully explained what it meant to be invincible. He was like the ruler of this realm, suppressing the battlefield and invincible. Go! Soon, another old monster was swallowed by the Door of Exile and disappeared. He originally tried to dodge and escape, and used a forbidden secret technique. His body steamed with terrifying and boundless power fluctuations, but before he could release it, he was swept away by the Door of Exile, and he became the fifth transcendent realm great perfection existence killed by Lin Sun after he entered the transcendent realm. Retreat! At this moment, Wang Zhongyuan gritted his teeth and roared. He completely realized that the situation had evolved to the point of no return. If they continued to fight, it was destined that there would only be more casualties. It was a pity that in such a favorable situation, neither Lin Sun nor Fang Daoping intended to give them a chance to escape. Boom! The battle became more and more intense. Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers fought against the remaining 3 opponents together, which was equivalent to 2 against 1. Every time the 3 old monsters wanted to escape, they were blocked by Lin Sun. It was the same on Fang Daoping's side. Wang Zhongyuan was not injured much, but his companions were already seriously injured and on the verge of death. They were completely suppressed by Fang Daoping's power. Even if they tried to escape at the risk of their lives, it was of no use. This cast a shadow over Wang Zhongyuan's heart. They felt cold all over and completely realized that the situation was not good. Go! Go to hell! Almost at the same time, 2 loud shouts sounded. One came from Lin Sun himself. He cooperated with Greenwood Taoist Body to suppress an old monster and put him into the Door of Exile. The other came from Lin Sun's Scarlet Fire Taoist Body. He and Yellow Taoist Body blasted another old monster to death in a destructive way. His body and spirit were burned into ashes. All of a sudden, there was only one opponent left on Lin Sun's side. Fang Daoping, do you really want to be so ruthless? This scene made Wang Zhongyuan shout hoarsely. Or, do you really want to completely break off all pretenses of cordiality with the 10 immortal giants? Fang Daoping sneered, you're wrong. It's you who are waging war on the Yuan clan. Since the establishment of the Yuan clan, when have we ever been afraid of threats? Boom! As he spoke, he raised his saber and chopped down the old monster who was already seriously injured and dying. The snow-white saber chi crushed the old monster's corpse. Now I'll send you to hell. Fang Daoping stared at Wang Zhongyuan with his cold eyes. Lin Sun had won an absolute advantage in this battle. If Fang Daoping still didn't know how to use it, he would be too stupid. He was doomed to not allow any opportunity for his opponent to escape. Fang Daoping, when the 10 immortal giants attack the Yuan clan in the future, you will be the culprit, Wang Zhongyuan shouted. He began to fight desperately, and his cultivation seemed to be completely burning. Whoosh! However, at that moment, Lin Sun and his 5 avatars arrived and besieged him together with Fang Daoping. It turned out that the last opponent who was besieged by Lin Sun was completely killed. Seeing this scene, Wang Zhongyuan was filled with sorrow and despair. Including him, 10 transcendent realm great perfection existences were all going to die here today. This was something they never expected. Lin Sun, sooner or later, your Fangsuan mountain will be destroyed like you, Wang Zhongyuan roared. His voice shook the starry sky, revealing extreme anger and unwillingness. At the same time, Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers besieged Wang Zongyuan together. They bombarded Wang Zongyuan with dense killing means and directly killed Wang Zongyuan on the spot. Wang Zongyuan died without leaving any residue, which was extremely overbearing and bloody. Fang Daoping, who was slightly slower, couldn't help but gasp when he saw this scene. He couldn't help but think that with Lin Sun's current combat strength, it was more than enough to obtain the position of Deputy Pavilion Master. P.S. I'll add more chapters tonight. Everyone, take a look and see if there are monthly tickets. Chapter 2970. 15 minutes. Lin Sun accurately calculated the time from the start to the end of the battle. The Gate of Exile's power was still present on the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. If it wasn't withdrawn, it could still last for a while. In this battle, he killed 8 Transcendent Realm Great Perfection existences on his own and killed Wang Zongyuan together with Fang Daoping. He sacrificed close to 40% of his cultivation in this battle. He didn't suffer any injuries at all. His achievements could be said to be brilliant and glorious. If Ji Shanhai, Moon In Well, and others who had fought against Lin Sun before saw this scene, they would have a new understanding of Lin Sun's combat power. Back in the Sky Demon region, even though they attacked Lin Sun together, they didn't manage to force him to use his full combat power. Not to mention, Lin Sun didn't even use the 5 Tao bodies or the Gate of Exile's power. I didn't expect this, I really didn't expect this, Fang Daoping sighed. He couldn't calm down. For an old fellow like him, 10 years wasn't even enough time for a single round of closed-door cultivation. However, in the past 10 years, Lin Sun had achieved many qualitative transformations on the immortal way. Up to now, he was invincible and invincible under the siege of Transcendent Realm Great Perfection old monsters. This was too shocking. Fang Daoping was sure that there had never been an example like Lin Sun in the countless years since ancient times. It was not an exaggeration to call it a miracle. It was a miracle that had never happened before. Senior, let's leave this place quickly. As Lin Sun spoke, he took out a Sun-Moon Immortal pill and stuffed it into his mouth. There was no need to think about it to know that there would be enemies on the way. The most important thing now was to run as far as possible. Fortunately, there were no true Eternal Realm experts among the 10 Immortal Giant. As a result, they naturally couldn't use their Eternal Realm will and Dharma during the battle. Otherwise, this battle wouldn't have ended so easily. At this time, Lin Sun realized why the 10 Immortal Giants dared to touch the Yuan School's authority. Firstly, it was because the Yuan School's 3 Pavilion Masters had their own problems. Secondly, it was because the 10 Immortal Giants were backed by the 9th Heaven's Eternal God Clan. Otherwise, with their foundation, they wouldn't have the confidence to fight the Yuan School. However, when Fang Daoping was about to leave with Lin Sun, boom! In the starry sky, a huge Buddha seal that blotted out the sky appeared out of thin air. It shone brightly, as if it was made of immortal gold. With a terrifying and boundless power, it slammed towards Fang Daoping. Humph! Cassiopeia, I knew you wouldn't give up. Fang Daoping snorted coldly and waved the shiny long saber in his hand. Whoosh! A 30,000-meter-long saber chi swept out, sharp and domineering. Boom! The dazzling golden Buddha seal suddenly exploded and was split open from the middle. It dimmed and dispersed. In the distant starry sky, a dignified and imposing figure appeared. He stood on a golden lotus platform. His figure was thin and withered, and he held a green ruler in his hand. It was Buddhist Supreme Cassiopeia. There was a battle here just now. Could it be that Wang Zongyuan and the others have been killed? Jia Yi frowned and looked solemn. He had clearly just caught up. Although he had sensed the remnant battle aura in this part of the starry sky, he didn't know the details of the previous battle. Perhaps it was because of this that he didn't make a move immediately. Yes, they have all been killed. Fong Daoping said indifferently, "If you, Cassiopeia, want to follow in their footsteps, you can have a fight with me." Jia Yi frowned slightly and said, "You killed 10 transcendent realm great perfection in such a short time. It seems that you, Fong Daoping, still have a trump card in your hand. Let me guess, is this trump card related to the eternal level will Dharma form?" Fong Daoping sneered. How could he not see that Jia Yi had begun to be anxious and doubtful? "If I say that you guessed wrong, you definitely won't believe it." Fong Daoping said, "However, it's useless to say this. I only have one thing to say. If you don't want to cause conflict between Yuan School and Zen School in the future, you'd better stop now." His voice was calm, but it revealed an unquestionable power. Jia Yi was silent for a moment and said, "Zen School can give up that deity-level order. As long as you give me Lin Sun, I will leave immediately." Fong Daoping's pupils shrank, and he seemed to be very surprised. This undoubtedly proved that in the eyes of Jia Yi, Lin Sun was more important than the deity-level order. He said coldly, "Wishful thinking." But at this moment Lin Sun suddenly said, "If you can defeat me with your own cultivation, I will go with you immediately. If you lose, I will leave immediately. What do you think?" He could see that what Fong Daoping was afraid of was not Jia Yi, but the trump card of eternal realm level in Jia Yi's hand. If Fong Daoping was sure to win, he would not talk nonsense like this. He would have taken action immediately. Jia Yi was stunned, as if he couldn't believe that Lin Sun would say such a thing. Fighting with him, with the cultivation of transcendent early stage? Who in the world dared to be so arrogant? Jia Yi obviously didn't believe that there was such a good thing in the world. He looked at Fong Daoping and asked, "Brother Fong, is what he said true?" Fong Daoping's eyes were slightly strange, and he said, "If you promise to only fight with your own cultivation, I will have no objection to Lin Sun's proposal." Jia Yi frowned. He realized that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what Fong Daoping was up to. He couldn't help but be silent. Suddenly, a deep voice rumbled from far away in the starry sky. "If you, Fong Daoping, exchange the power of the divine level order, I don't mind playing with Lin Sun. If I win, the divine level order will be mine. If I lose, I will leave immediately." Before the voice died away, Zhu Wenheng's figure had appeared out of thin air. Fong Daoping narrowed his eyes slightly and then said indifferently, "Then I have to ask Jia Yi first. After all, he came first." Zhu Wenheng laughed. "There is no conflict. If I win, the divine level order will be mine. Then let Lin Sun fight with Jia Yi again." Fong Daoping sneered. "As an earth priest, it is ungentlemanly for you to deal with a junior. Now you even say such shameless words. Zhu Wenheng, you are really shameless." Zhu Wenheng said expressionlessly, "Why don't we have a duel?" Before Fong Daoping spoke, Lin Sun had already said, "I put forward the proposal. Since the earth priest of witchcraft wants to play, how can I refuse?" He stepped forward and stared at Zhu Wenheng. "The divine level order is in my hands. If you defeat me, this divine level order will be yours." Zhu Wenheng's eyes were full of divine light and he laughed. "Fong Daoping, did you see that? Even the successor of Fong Siyuan Mountain is more courageous than you. But don't worry, I only want the divine level order. I won't hurt his life." Jia Yi, who had been watching coldly, reminded at this moment, "You'd better be careful." Zhu Wenheng snorted, "Monk, do you think I will be defeated by a little thing who has just achieved transcendence?" Jia Yi said no more. He didn't make a move immediately because he had doubts before. Now that Zhu Wenheng planned to make a move, he could take this opportunity to see what Fong Daoping and Lin Sun were up to. "Zhu Wenheng, remember not to use any power other than your own cultivation," Fong Daoping said coldly. Zhu Wenheng looked up to the sky and laughed. "Don't worry, I don't want to use other means to deal with a young man." Fong Daoping said, "Do you mean it?" Zhu Wenheng's face darkened. "I swear by my Taoist heart. Is that okay?" Fong Daoping said no more. Zhu Wenheng looked at Lin Sun and said, "Even a lion should use all its strength to catch a rabbit. Young man, if you know you are no match for me, you'd better say something. It's not a shame to lose to me." Lin Sun smiled slightly. "Huashao promised not to kill me, but I killed him. I hope you, the Earth Priest of Witchcraft, don't be stubborn. It's better to lose than to die." Zhu Wenheng almost couldn't believe his ears. He was stunned for a moment and couldn't help laughing. "I'd like to see where your confidence comes from. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me?" Boom. He made a move directly, clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and smashed it. The bright fist was imprinted with the horrible power of the law. It was like a bolt of thunder cutting through the starry sky. The power alone made the starry sky tremble. Jia Ye's eyes narrowed. He could see that Zhu Wenheng didn't hold back. The power of this punch could threaten the existence of the same realm. Lin Sun also made a move at the same time. He jumped forward and hit Zhu Wenheng with a simple and direct punch. Bang! The 2 fists collided, releasing a terrible force that suddenly exploded the nearby void, producing an earth-shattering explosion. Lin Sun was as steady as a rock, motionless. Zhu Wenheng's figure shook violently. Jia Ye's solemn expression couldn't help but reveal a wisp of astonishment. Zhu Wenheng also seemed to be surprised. His face darkened immediately, as if he was ashamed into anger. He punched again. Boom. His chi was roaring. His cultivation, which had been polished and tempered for countless years, was running at this moment, so that this punch was full of an irresistible momentum, and was infused with his spirit, chi, spirit, and will. However, this punch was blocked by Lin Sun again in a head-on way. How is this possible? Zhu Wenheng's pupils dilated, and his eyeballs almost cracked. He suddenly felt something was wrong. At this time, Lin Sun had already taken advantage of the situation to rush up. His figure flashed, and the 5 Tao forms moved together to besiege Zhu Wei with an overwhelming momentum. All kinds of terrifying Tao arts and power also bombarded out like a landslide and a tsunami. Boom! In an instant, Zhu Wenheng was besieged. The bombardment was surging from all directions, and his figure was submerged by the vast Tao light. When seeing this scene, Jia Yi couldn't help but gasp. His face finally changed. He finally understood why Lin Sun was so confident. This young man's combat power was not comparable to ordinary transcendent realm early. However, Jia Yi still couldn't imagine how Lin Sun could have such incredible fighting power after he just broke through to the Tao-proving realm. This completely subverted his expectation. Zhu Wenheng was the Earth Priest of Witchcraft cult. His cultivation was so strong that ordinary people in the same realm could not compare with him at all. But now, he was still completely suppressed by Lin Sun. Boom! The roar in the battlefield continued. Occasionally, Zhu Wenheng's angry roar came out, but it was soon covered by the deafening sound of fighting. From beginning to end, he couldn't break Lin Sun's siege. Seeing this, Jia Yi couldn't help but look at Fong Daoping in the distance, but Fong Daoping looked calm as if he had expected this. This made Jia Yi couldn't help but think of a question: were the old guys of the 10 immortal giants also killed by Lin Sun and Fong Daoping together? As soon as he thought of this, there was an earth-shaking noise on the battlefield. Zhu Wenheng, do you admit defeat? Lin Sun and his doppelgangers scattered. At this time, Jia Yi saw Zhu Wenheng clearly, but the Earth Priest of Witchcraft cult was in a terrible state at this moment. His body was badly mutilated, and his aura was scattered. He looked like he was seriously injured and dying. This made Jia Ye's hair stand on end. The new chapter is here. Those who planned to vote for the monthly vote after reading the new chapter can vote now. Chapter 2971. First, the 2 fists collided, then Zhu Wenheng was beaten up. The whole battle ended in just a few dozen breaths. But the battle scene was extraordinarily domineering, bloody, and shocking. Zhu Wenheng was the shaman of witchcraft. His status was equivalent to the deputy pavilion master of Yuan religion. He was a top-notch existence among the transcendent realm, great perfection, far superior to those in the same realm. After all, witchcraft was one of the 4 ancestral halls. Those who could become the shaman were all overlords among their peers. But now, facing Lin Sun, a junior, Zhu Wenheng was defeated miserably. This was simply earth-shattering. If word of this got out, perhaps not many people would believe it. Just like at this moment, even though he witnessed the whole battlefield, Jia Yi felt it was unreal, and his heart was chilled. Strictly speaking, he and Zhu Wenheng were at the same level. Zhu Wenheng's defeat also alerted him. He couldn't help but think that if he agreed to Lin Sun's challenge first, then he would lose. It would be him. Zhu Wenheng panted, and his eyes almost popped out. I was actually beaten by a junior? Zhu Wenheng couldn't understand it, and he couldn't accept it. He was dumbfounded. Previously, his words were full of disdain for Lin Sun. He regarded Lin Sun as a junior and was confident that he could defeat Lin Sun easily, just like a god dealing with an ant. Only a crazy person would think that an ant could slay a dragon. But as it happened, this abnormal thing really did happen. It was such a huge blow that even Zhu Wenheng, an experienced old monster, was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. Seeing Zhu Wenheng's expression, Jia Ye's heart was in turmoil again. How could he not see that Zhu Wenheng couldn't accept all this? Do you admit defeat? Lin Sun spoke again, and a strong murderous intent was also locked on Zhu Wenheng. The latter shuddered and completely woke up. His expression was uncertain, and his pupils gradually became bloodshot. A strong sense of shame and hatred rushed to his heart like a tide. Admit defeat? Zhu Wenheng's voice seemed to be squeezed out from his teeth. Yes, I admit defeat. Fang Daoping, who had been vigilant, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, Zhu Wenheng sneered. I admit defeat, but it doesn't mean that my witchcraft will admit defeat. Not good. Fang Daoping's heart jolted. However, Lin Sun reacted faster than him. Almost as soon as Zhu Wenheng's voice sounded, Lin Sun's killing intent, which had been firmly locked on Zhu Wenheng, suddenly broke out. Boom! The abyssal sword cauldron fiercely pressed down with unparalleled might. Bang! At the same time, Zhu Wen crushed a strange jade talisman in his hand. An incredible scene appeared. It was at this moment that the abyssal sword cauldron shattered Zhu Wenheng's body. It was also at this moment that a terrifying eternal realm aura spread out, causing the entire starry sky to tremble. At the same time, the eternal realm aura appeared, but it was swallowed up by the door of exile along with Zhu Wenheng's shattered body. The time was exactly right. A series of actions and scenes occurred and ended in an instant. When Fang Daoping and Jia Yi came to their senses, Zhu Wenheng and the jade talisman that was branded with the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol had vanished into thin air. This strange and unbelievable scene caused both of them to be stunned. How could this be? Lin also felt lucky in his heart. If he had been a little bit slower, the consequences would have been absolutely unimaginable. In the ruins of fate, he had witnessed the horror of the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol. Naturally, he knew very well that once the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol appeared, it would definitely be a fatal threat to him. But fortunately, none of this would happen now. And this was the first time that the door of exile had swept away the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol. As for Zhu Wenheng, he must be extremely aggrieved. He had a trump card that could turn the tables, but just because he was a little bit slower, he failed at the last moment. After a while, Jia Yi said, "If I'm not mistaken, just now Zhu Wenheng wanted to summon the Dharma idol of the witch cult's Flamen Tu Kai." Yes. Fang Daoping nodded. An old guy who has been in the Eternal Realm for 19,000 years. He is known as the Unbearable and the Unshakable. He is a famous great villain in the witch cult. His eyes were also slightly unfocused. Tu Kai. If his Dharma idol appeared, he would have to pay a heavy price if he wanted to leave this time. But the amazing thing was that as soon as Tu Kai's Dharma idol appeared, it was taken away before it had time to exert its power. What are you going to do? Fang Daoping looked at Jiayi. Lin Sun also looked over. My suggestion still counts. Jia Ye's lips twitched imperceptibly, and he said, It will take us half a month to go to Yuan Sect. I hope you can return safely. After that, he stepped on the golden lotus throne and turned away. He also had a trump card in his hand, but he knew that Fang Daoping also had it. But with Lin Sun's help, everything was different. Zhu Wenheng was dead, and Wang Zhongyuan and other old monsters of the 10 immortal giants had also been destroyed. He didn't want to follow in their footsteps. Don't chase after him. Watching Jia Ye's figure leave, Fang Daoping suddenly reminded him. He noticed that Lin Sun was about to make a move. It's a pity. Lin Sun sighed softly. Fang Daoping shook his head. Now isn't the time to be happy. Not to mention that this bald donkey won't stop just like that. Didn't you hear what he said? There will definitely be unpredictable dangers on our way back. Lin Sun was shocked. They immediately left this starry sky. Along the way, Lin Sun kept refining immortal sun-moon pills to replenish his exhausted physical strength. Fang Daoping couldn't calm down. After the previous battle, he suddenly realized that the current Lin Sun didn't need his protection at all. On the contrary, it was Lin Sun who played a key role in the battle just now. The destruction of Wang Zhongyuan and others was solved by him. Even the Dharma idols of Zhu Wenheng and Tu Kai were destroyed by Lin Sun. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even help much. This shocked Fang Daoping, but he also felt extremely gratified and even a little lost. This kind of mood was very subtle. The little guy who needed his protection before was now able to overcome the difficulties alone. 2 days later, Fang Daoping and Lin Sun, who were rushing with all their strength, stopped at the same time. In the starry sky far away, there was a figure sitting cross-legged. It was a man who looked like a young man. He wore a black robe and his long hair was loose. His face was fair and handsome, and he held a sheathed longsword in his arms. He was drinking and he looked very relaxed. But when he saw this person, Fang Daoping's pupils shrank and his heart tightened. An Eternal Realm expert's Dharma idol. Just looking at it from afar, it gave off an unshakable feeling of majesty. Lin Sun was very calm. Back in the ruins of fate, he had seen many Eternal Realm old monsters' Dharma idol. Naturally, he knew how terrifying the power held by such an existence was. Just like Tai Xian, his Dharma idol could kill a transcendent realm expert like killing a chicken. Just like Chun Linkong, he was even more terrifying. He could easily kill an Eternal Realm expert's Dharma idol. Right now, there was only an Eternal Realm expert's Dharma idol blocking in front of him. It was much better than the situation he encountered in front of the divine city of fate. Of course, this was not contempt. It was Lin Sun's understanding. Because he had experienced it before, he was so calm. Yuan Shukuan of the Yuan family has been waiting for you for a long time. In the distance, the black-robed man who was sitting cross-legged drank a glass of wine. He raised his head and smiled at Fang Daoping and Lin Sun. Then, he stood up and stretched his waist lazily. Boom! An indescribably terrifying pressure instantly spread from his body, covering the starry sky. Everything in this starry sky seemed to be frozen in an instant. Lin Sun and Fang Daoping, who were in the middle of it, were like two fish frozen in ice. Their bodies were under terrifying pressure. When Lin Sun was in the Nirvana realm, he didn't have the ability to resist. He couldn't even move a finger. But now, he had already achieved transcendence. His immortal supreme potential was released unprecedentedly. At the moment when he was being suppressed and imprisoned, his chi started to operate. Boom! With Lin Sun as the center, the void around him suddenly exploded, and the turbulent torrent of the great path rolled. Immediately after, Fang Daoping also broke free from the suppression. He immediately took out a jade talisman. Boom! Endless sharp and bright light rain fluttered, and a majestic godlike figure appeared. He was dressed in linen, and behind him was a boundless rain of sword qi. It was Tai Xian. Lin Sun's eyes lit up. Fong Daoping's trump card turned out to be Tai Xian's will. The situation is urgent. I'll have to trouble Pavilion Master Tai Xian to clear the way. Fong Daoping cupped his hands. Tai Xian nodded and looked at Yuan Shuquan in the distance. His aura suddenly roared, and Yuan Shuquan's pressure that originally covered the starry sky began to collapse like a tide. I knew it would be like this. Yuan Shuquan in the distance didn't seem surprised. He said with an indifferent expression, Tai Xian, I heard that in the entire Yuan sect, besides the leader of the Yuan sect, your combat power is the strongest. Unfortunately, this isn't the ninth heaven. Otherwise, I would really want to fight you with my true body. Tai Xian's sleeves fluttered, and his body was as straight as a divine sword. He said, Don't worry. From the moment you dared to intercept the people of my Yuan family today, you are already an enemy of my Yuan family. In the future, I will go to the ninth heaven and see what qualifications your Yuan family has to be an enemy of my Yuan family. His voice spread across the starry sky. Yuan Shuquan smiled. That's a matter for the future. For now, even if you take action, it will be difficult to protect these people. He seemed extremely confident. Tai Xian didn't speak any more nonsense and waved his sleeves. The starry sky shook, and a sword qi appeared out of thin air. It was like the light of the great Tao swept out from the chaos, showing a primitive aura that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. That kind of power oppressed the countless stars in the void and turned them into powder. The entire starry sky suddenly became chaotic, as if it had fallen into a state of collapse. One sword crushed the starry sky. Chapter 2972. Lin Sun and Fong Daoping both retreated. The power of this sword was so strong that they had no choice but to avoid it. This was the difference between the eternal realm and the transcendent realm. The transcendent realm wasn't restricted by the rules of heaven and earth. The eternal realm could control and use the rules of heaven and earth. Clang! Far away, Yuan Shuquan unsheathed the sword that he had been holding in his arms. The sword hummed like the roar of an ancient god, and a terrifying sword intent poured out. Bang bang bang! Before Tai Xian's sword could even get close to Yuan Shuquan, it shattered in the void, turning into an endless rain of light. At this moment, Yuan Shuquan had completely unsheathed his sword. The sword was silver like snow, shining brightly and brightly, illuminating the starry sky. It was just a sword, but it made Lin Sun and Fong Daoping feel a stabbing pain in their hearts. They felt suffocated, and their expressions changed. Great spirit-subduing sword. Tai Xian frowned and his expression turned serious, which was rare for him. This sword was the sword of the Yuanshi God clan. A sword born from the deity order. The power of law contained within it had already transformed into the profoundness of the law. If his original body was here, Tai Xian wouldn't be afraid of such a weapon. However, he, who was only a manifestation of will, couldn't help but fear this sword. Almost at the same time, Fong Daoping told Lin Sun about the origin of the great spirit-subduing sword. His expression was also solemn. Without a doubt, Yuan Shuquan came here to obtain the deity order. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought a treasure like the great spirit-subduing sword with him. After Lin Sun heard it, he suddenly thought of the obliteration rule and treasure drop rule in the Door of Exile. This was similar to the great spirit-subduing sword, which was imprinted with the power of law. I came here for the deity order. If you are willing to hand it over, I will leave immediately. After all, the ninth son of my clan's leader is also cultivating in the Yuan religion. I don't want to destroy the harmony between us. In the distance, Yuan Shuquan held the sword and spoke calmly. His aura became even more terrifying. Tai Xian said calmly, Don't worry. Even if you die, as long as Yuan Changtian doesn't violate the Yuan religion's rules, the Yuan religion won't take revenge on him. As for the God-level order, with me here, you can't snatch it away. Yuan Sukuan's expression turned cold. If the Eternal Realm's Dharma idol is destroyed, you won't be able to condense a second one in a short period of time. Moreover, your cultivation will be damaged. Are you sure you want to risk your life? Tai Xian's reply was a slash of sword energy. This sword chi was extremely simple and didn't contain a trace of the aura of fire. It appeared out of thin air and instantly pierced through the starry sky as it pierced towards Yuan Sukuan. Yuan Sukuan coldly snorted and slashed out with the great subduing spirit sword. Boom! A rain of light swept through the sky. This expanse of the starry sky was in complete chaos like the primal chaos. There were scenes of destruction everywhere, and nothing existed. With the great spirit subduing sword, no matter how strong your Taishian will Dharma is, you won't be able to reverse the situation. Yuan Sukuan's voice came from within the rain of light. Since you're unwilling to back down, I won't be polite anymore. Whoosh! He charged forward with his sword in hand. Like a dazzling silver light, he suddenly appeared in front of Tai Xian. The silver sword was filled with obscure rule power and slashed down. Billions of sword energy appeared around Tai Xian, forming a sword formation that clashed with him. Rumble! The heavens shook and the earth shook. The aura of destruction was too terrifying. Fang Daoping immediately felt a fatal threat pressing down on him. He didn't hesitate to take Lin Sun far away. However, Lin Sun shook his head and said, I want to help Senior Tai Xian. Maybe he can help us resolve this crisis. Fang Daoping was stunned. While he was stunned, Lin Sun had already made his move. Blade of Time. With Lin Sun's current cultivation, when he used this forbidden supernatural power, its power was naturally not the same as before. A wisp of an illusory sharp light flashed out, and it silently slashed towards Yuan Sukuan, who was extremely far away in the battlefield, and it was swift to a world-shocking extent. Yuan Sukuan seemed to have foreseen this. He swept the long sword in his hand and blocked the Blade of Time at a critical moment. Bang! The Blade of Time exploded. If you had the cultivation of the Eternal Realm and used Luo Tongtian's Blade of Time, I might be a little afraid. Unfortunately, you're not strong enough now. Yuan Sukuan's expression was indifferent. He destroyed the Blade of Time with one strike. That kind of power was so strong that it made people despair. Lin Sun frowned. He could already see that Tai Xian's Dharma form was being restrained everywhere and was injured in many places. If this went on, not only would Tai Xian's Dharma form be destroyed, even he and Fang Daoping would not be able to leave here today. It was not because Yuan Sukuan's combat power was better than Tai Xian's, but because the power of the subduing spirit sword in his hand was too terrifying. Fang Daoping also realized that something was wrong and quickly said, Lin Sun, I will fight with Tai Xian Pavilion Master. You take this opportunity to leave as soon as possible. The farther, the better. He was obviously going to fight to the death and fight for a chance of survival for Lin Sun. Lin Sun was shocked and immediately said, Senior, the situation is not at the end of the line yet. After saying that, he took a deep breath and jumped forward. Yuan Sukuan, who was fighting with Tai Xian, was keenly aware that the rules of time between heaven and earth were changing strangely, as if they were being pulled by an invisible force. At this moment, Lin Sun rushed up and made a seal with both hands. Crash! Countless threads of time intertwined and turned into a mysterious forbidden formation, covering the battlefield and Yuan Sukuan. Time seal. Yuan Sukuan, who had long sensed that something was wrong, immediately took action and slashed down with the subduing spirit sword. The power of this sword was so terrifying that the time seal suddenly fluctuated violently, but in the end it resolved the power of this sword. Tai Xian's Dharma form could not help but show a strange expression. What a powerful time power! Senior, let's go. Lin Sun said quickly. Let's go. Tai Xian also realized that this was the best time to escape. He immediately waved his sleeve and took Lin Sun and Fang Daoping with him, moving through time and space. In an instant they disappeared in this vast starry sky. In the time seal, Yuan Su Kuan's face was gloomy. He used all his strength to attack, but the power of the time seal was condensed by the rules of time between heaven and earth. It was impossible to break it in a short time, even if he used the subduing spirit sword. Damn it! Yuan Su Kuan was completely furious. This time, he had come prepared. He had already calculated that in order to snatch the divine level order, he would inevitably clash with the eternal realm Dharma form, so he carried the subduing spirit sword with him. But he never expected that the mishap would happen to Lin Sun. This time, not only was it very likely that he would miss the divine level order, but if Lin Sun and the others were allowed to return to the Yuan sect alive, the Yuan sect was destined to see the Yuanji clan as a mortal enemy in the future. Although the Yuanji clan was entrenched in the ninth heaven and did not fear the Yuan sect, the Yuan sect's foundation was so terrifying that the Yuanji clan could not ignore it. After taking a few deep breaths, Yuan Su Kuan completely calmed down. He began to look at the time seal. Is this also the forbidden magic power of the devouring abyss talent? It's really mysterious. If my main body was here, I could use all my strength to break it, but now… Yuan Su Kuan calculated for a moment and came up with an answer that made his heart heavy. Even if he used the power of the subduing spirit sword and the power of the subduing spirit sword to attack with all his strength, it would take at least 4 hours. Moreover, when he really broke the time seal, half of the power of his Dharma form would be consumed. With Tai Xian's ability, if I return to the Yuan sect from here, I can reach it in less than 3 days. If I chase after them 2 hours later, I'm afraid it will take a day. After thinking for a long time, Yuan Su Kuan gritted his teeth and began to attack the time seal with all his strength. Anyway, this was a Dharma form of will. Even if it was completely destroyed, he didn't care at all. He decided to chase after them. Otherwise, he would never be satisfied for the rest of his life. After all, it was a complete divine level order. If he could obtain it, it could even change the status of the Yuanji clan among the 12 eternal god clans. Lin Sun's face was pale. He was refining the power of the Sun and Moon immortal pill with all his strength. Using the Blade of Time and the Seal of Time, 2 forbidden divine abilities in a row, consumed about 80% of his cultivation. Although Tai Xian's Dharma form was riddled with injuries, its speed of teleportation was terrifying. It carried Lin Sun and Fang Daoping at full speed through the starry sky. How long can your magical power last? Fang Daoping asked along the way. Speaking of this, Fang Daoping was inexplicably shocked. He had also seen the power of the time seal for the first time. He would never have thought that a magical power could trap an eternal realm Dharma form of will. I'm not sure. Lin Sun shook his head. If it was against an immortal realm Dharma form, the power of the time seal could last for half a month. But against an eternal realm Dharma form of will, Lin Sun was not confident. It's fine. Even if I completely use up the power of this Dharma form, I will still escort you back to the Yuan sect. Tai Xian's expression was calm. He was riddled with injuries, but he didn't care. After all, this was a Dharma form of will, not his true body. Before this, I already used a secret method to contact the sect. There will definitely be important figures of the sect rushing over on our way. Fang Daoping said in a low voice. In the entire Yuan sect, old monster Yanji's state of mind has a problem. Yu Beihai has not yet reached the eternal realm, and my true body is still meditating in the mystery realm, dealing with myself. Tai Xian sighed softly. It's also my fault that I was arrogant at the beginning. I only wanted to surpass the sect master on the great way, so that I fell into a trap of my own making. Otherwise, so many things would not have happened in the sect over the countless years. Fang Daoping was silent. Regarding this kind of topic, It was not appropriate for him to say much. Lin Sun frowned. According to Tai Xian's words, he suddenly realized that even if someone from the Yuan sect came to help them this time, it was very likely that it was only Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, and the other deputy pavilion masters. After all, in the huge Yuan sect, the 3 pavilion masters all had their own troubles to deal with. The only fortunate thing was that Yuan Shukuan was trapped, and it was impossible for him to catch up for a while. As long as there were no accidents on the way, they could safely arrive at the Yuan sect. But what Lin Sun did not expect was that just half a day later, when they were moving at full speed, a monstrous killing tribulation came. Whether you have a monthly ticket or not, continue to add more chapters tonight. Chapter 2973. In the starry skies, an old monk stood there. He was senile, his white beard hung down to his chest, and his face was benevolent and amiable. He held a snow-white rui scepter in his hand. His skinny fingers twirled his beard, making him look like an old man from the countryside. But when he saw the old monk, Tai Xian couldn't help but frown. "Jianan, are you representing the Zen sect to start a war with my Yuan sect?" Tai Xian's voice was cold. The Zen sect had the title of Buddha of the 3 realms. They were the Buddha of the past, the Buddha of the present, and the Buddha of the future. Their statuses were equivalent to the pavilion master of the Yuan sect, the sky priest of the witch sect, and the dean of the spirit sect. Jianan was the Buddha of the past of the Zen sect. Purely in terms of cultivation, even Yuan Su Kuan was slightly weaker. There was no other reason other than the fact that Jianan had proven his Tao for far too long. It was said that it had been as long as 300,000 years, and he could be said to be an antique at the level of a living fossil. Fang Daoping's face also became solemn and gloomy. He told Lin Sun about Jianan's identity. There was no doubt that the reason Jianan was able to make an appearance here was definitely because he'd received a message from Jia Yi. He. Far away, Jianan smiled warmly. Tai Xian, what you and I are using is the Dharma of will. It is not enough to start a war between the 2 ancestral courts. You can rest assured that I am not here to kill anyone. Then what do you want? Tai Xian said coldly. If his Dharma idol was not damaged, he would not fear Jianan at all. But the reality was that he was already riddled with injuries. Lin Sun, please come with me to the Zen sect. Jianan was really polite and his expression was really merciful. However, Tai Xian and Fang Daoping's faces sank. Whether it was for the divine order or for Lin Sun, they couldn't accept it. If I don't agree? Tai Xian asked. Fellow Taoist, do you recognize this treasure? Jianan raised the snow-white rui in his hand. This treasure was crystal clear, round, translucent, and brilliant. It was enshrouded in a mysterious Buddha's aura, and its breath was obscure and mysterious. When looked at from afar, it didn't seem like a rui scepter, but a paradise instead. Countless inconceivable phenomena surged into appearance, such as heavenly dragons coiling, phoenixes crying, Buddhas discussing the Tao, the sound of Tao drums, a myriad of auspicious clouds, a deluge of heavenly flowers. A single glance seemed to be able to immerse one's mind in it. 7 Treasure Scepter. A dark look appeared on Tai Xian's face. This was a precious treasure of the Zen sect, and it was refined from 7 types of natural divine materials that were born in the divine rank order. Its might was extremely unbelievable. In comparison, Yuan Su Kuan's Great Spirit Subduing Sword was slightly inferior. This was also the reason why Tai Xian was furious. There was no doubt that Jianan and Yuan Su Kuan had come prepared. However, the former was to take Lin Sun away, while the latter was to seize the god-level order. Fang Daoping's heart also sank. The 7 Treasure Scepter was rumored to be a divine weapon forged by the founder of the Zen sect after he attained the eternal Tao. Its power was so great that it was enough to make an eternal realm existence fear it. But now, such a treasure was brought by Jianan to threaten Lin Sun to take him away. Fellow Taoist, please step back. Seeing that Tai Xian had recognized the treasure, Jianan stopped smiling and put his palms together. The treasure chest was solemn, and he bowed. The snow-white ruby floated in front of him, giving him a powerful aura. I, Grand Mystery, have never backed down since I started cultivating. Jianan, for what you've done today, don't blame me for retaliating in the future. Tai Xian's voice was sonorous, as firm as his sword principle. Jianan sighed softly and revealed a compassionate expression. It's too difficult to make someone like you put down the butcher's knife. Since that's the case, I can only offend you. Buzz. Before he finished speaking, the 7 treasure scepter roared. In an instant, the starry sky seemed to have transformed into a true paradise. There was infinite Buddhist light, infinite Zen sound, and infinite truth everywhere. Such a grand scene should have been shocking and enviable, but at this moment, Lin Sun's hair stood on end, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Boom! Tai Xian's body seemed to be burning, but his expression was calm. His sword intent was like an erupting volcano, and his robe fluttered in the wind. Next, I will open a path for you. Run as far as you can. Tai Xian's eyes were like burning suns. It was obvious that he wanted to sacrifice his dharma to help Lin Sun and Fang Daoping. This made the two of them extremely sad. Even though they knew that this was merely Tai Xian's dharma, this solemn and stirring feeling of bravely dying still made them feel deep sorrow and indignation. Jianan let out a long sigh. Why bother? Boom! The paradise that had emerged in the starry sky turned into a hellish scene in an instant. Countless Buddhas glared angrily and emitted infinite power. It was as if they wanted to suppress Tai Xian in this hell, and make him unable to escape for eternity. A thought of paradise, a thought of hell. This scene was too terrifying. Clang! At the same time, Tai Xian's sleeves fluttered, and his burning cultivation turned into a sword chi. It was filled with an indomitable and fierce momentum, and it swept across the starry sky. Boom! This hellish world shook violently, and the figures of the Buddhas burst like bubbles. The heavens and the earth seemed to be torn apart by this sword. Such swordsmanship can be said to be the best in the world, and it can surpass all of its peers. Unfortunately, the power of your dharma is limited. Amidst the sorrowful sighs, the hellish world condensed again, and became even more ghastly and terrifying. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood emerged, and the horrifying purgatory scroll unfolded. Buddhas stepped on the mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and their bodies were surrounded by great light. They marched forward bravely and executed their wonderful technique. The sweeping sword chi eventually became dim and finally collapsed and disappeared with a bang. Looking at Tai Xian's dharma, it was already like a blurry light shadow, and it was extremely dim. This made Lin Sun and Fang Daoping's hearts sink to the bottom. The power of the 7 treasures scepter was simply desperate. Senior, let me do it. Suddenly, Lin Sun took a deep breath, and his eyes were determined. At this time, he couldn't care about anything else. The purple and green gourd instantly turned into purple and green double swords, and he held them in his hands. The abyssal sword cauldron rose into the air with a roar and floated above his head. Seeing this scene, Jianan's eyes were filled with a strange light, and he said softly, "This treasure is one of the rarest treasures in the world, but your cultivation is still far from it. Let me do it." Fang Daoping stepped forward and looked indifferent. "I have been in the transcendent realm great perfection for 39,000 years. I haven't lived for a long time, but I have long been unafraid of death." His body began to glow, and his whole body was roaring. Jianan shook his head. "It's like an ant trying to shake a tree or a moth flying into the fire. I'm not here to kill. Don't make it difficult for me." He waved his sleeve. Boom! In this hellish world, a Buddha's light emerged, easily shaking Fang Daoping back, and he coughed up blood. The gap in strength was too great. Even if he fought desperately, it would make people feel desperate. Jianan, I promise that if Lin Sun and Fang Daoping suffer here today, I will destroy Zen school in the future. If I don't kill all your disciples of Zen school, I swear I'm not a human. Tai Xian, whose figure was vague and illusory, said word by word. Jianan narrowed his eyes slightly and said, Taoism peer, I said that they will not die. Of course, if you want to avenge today's hatred, I will wait for you in Zen school. Jianan's words were full of confidence. As he spoke, the rui of 7 treasures in front of him buzzed and shone. In this hellish world, a terrible confinement force suddenly emerged. At the first moment, Lin Sun, Fang Daoping, and Tai Xian, whose figure had long been vague and illusory, stiffened. Seeing that he was about to be completely imprisoned and suppressed, a touch of determination flashed in Lin Sun's eyes. However, when he was about to take action, at this moment, boom! This hellish world seemed to have suffered a terrible bombardment, and a huge hole suddenly collapsed. The violent power of law roared, making the whole hellish world tumble violently. Jianan's snow-white eyebrows frowned, as if he had noticed the danger. He immediately held the rui of 7 treasures in his hand, and his old figure gushed out the terrible eternal light. Monk, you're having fun. A wanton and ostentatious laughter rang out. Then, a figure walked out from the huge hole. He was thin, ramrod straight and tall, crack. With the appearance of this figure, the hellish world trembled, as if it was about to be fragmented. The power of the Great Way collapsed and fell into chaos. At this moment, it was like a god from a different time and space had come here. Just the aura emitted from his body made the hellish world unable to bear it any longer and exploded. Endless light rain splashed, and the hellish scene dissipated. The figure walked over. Every time he took a step, the nearby void collapsed, and the law of the Great Way collapsed. His figure was thin and straight, covered with a kind of extremely bright and gorgeous divine glory of the Great Way, which turned into circles of light wheels, reflecting the scenery of the sky. But looking closely, he had the appearance of a young man. He was handsome, dressed in black clothes, and his long hair was loose. A wine gourd was tied by a red rope and hung on his waist. Only when his eyes moved, they were filled with the vicissitudes of time. Martial uncle! When he saw the person, Lin Sun was stunned and almost couldn't believe his eyes. With the swallowing gourd hanging on his waist, he walked on the Great Way. He went through 18 tribulations before his death, and after his death, he proved his immortality. It turns out to be him. Fang Daoping's eyes drifted. Unprecedented, there is only one person. Tai Xian's vague figure also showed a smile at this moment. Congratulations, Taoism peer. You have made up the flaw in your mind and achieved eternity. The person was Kong Ju. He was the first leader to cross the starry sky in the primitive times, the brother of the doctrine of mind, and the martial uncle of the successor of the doctrine of mind. It's true that I have achieved eternity, but my mind still needs to be repaired. A bright smile appeared on Kong Ju's handsome face. Of course, it's all thanks to my martial nephew Lin Sun. As he said, he looked at Lin Sun from afar and said with a smile, Martial nephew, please wait for a moment. I will take you away later. Lin Sun was excited and said, Thank you, martial uncle. Kong Ju looked up to the sky and laughed. I have been in a daze for countless years. When I wake up, all the old dreams of the past come back to my mind. How can I not know how good you are to me? Don't be so polite to me in the future. As he said, he suddenly turned around and looked at Jianan in the distance. The smile on his face became more and more brilliant. Monk, let me send you to hell, okay? His voice shook the starry sky and flew wantonly. P.S. Send more updates. Goldfish knew that everyone wanted to continue reading, but they really couldn't write any more tonight. I will continue to update tomorrow. Chapter 2974. The starry sky tumbled and the void trembled. Along with Kong Ju's arrival, the hell-like world collapsed. Jianan's white beard fluttered in the wind as divine light surged in his eyes. He held the Rui scepter in his hand, as if he was facing a great enemy. Earlier, he was solemn and sorrowful, like a ruler that controlled the universe, and he had firmly grasped the situation of the battle from beginning to end. However, at this moment, when he faced Kong Ju, his expression became serious. "I've heard of fellow Taoist's great name a long time ago. If we can fight today, it would be a fortunate thing." Jianan put his palms together. The Buddha's aura on his body was dense and steaming, illuminating the starry sky. "To me, it's a humiliation to deal with you, monk." Kong Ju restrained his smile while his eyes were filled with indifference, and his aura became terrifying like a peerless sword. "Fellow Taoist, what do you mean?" Instead of being annoyed, Jianan asked curiously. "Don't misunderstand. I just don't like people from your Zen sect," Kong Ju said. Jianan said indifferently, "There are many people in the world who can't stand the sight of my Dhyana sect. You won't make a difference." Kong Ju stretched his body, let out a long breath, and said, "Let's begin. Don't make my martial nephew wait too long." He strode forward. Every single step he took caused the starry sky to rumble and collapse abruptly, and the imposing aura he emanated rose greatly. When looked at from afar, he simply seemed like a peerless divine sword that was unsheathed, and he revealed a sharp glow that intended to crush the universe. Jianan's brows trembled slightly when he saw Kong Ju approaching with large strides, and he suddenly took a deep breath before lightly waving the seven-treasure scepter in his hand. Buzz! A magnificent and radiant Buddhist imprint condensed, and the infinite past scripture was engraved on it. Buddhist chanting erupted, and it was like eternal light that illuminated the starry sky. Infinite seal of the past. Such might was formidable to the point of shaking the ages. Facing this attack, Kong Ju directly punched out. Boom! The world turned upside down, and the sun and moon lost their light. The boundless past seal that was suffused with the aura of eternity was blasted apart by a single punch, and it exploded into pieces. The radiance of time was like rain that was dazzling and resplendent. This punch was simple and overbearing. On the other hand, Kong Ju continued forward, his thin and ramrod straight figure becoming even more fierce and lofty. Jianan did not stop either. The Rui's seven treasures buzzed and hummed, condensing layer after layer of seals. There was the Amitabha seal, the ultimate seal, the glazed Vidyaraja seal, the lotus seal, the Buddha seal, the boundless merciful seal. Every single seal was filled with a different eternal aura and was branded with a supreme aura. Moreover, the power of the laws could be faintly seen rising within them, and it was terrifying to an inconceivable degree. Lin Sun and Fang Daoping were shocked and deeply felt the power of the eternal realm. This was merely a projection of his will, yet it already possessed such divine might. If he were to attack with his actual body, then how terrifying would his might be? Boom! 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 When faced with such an attack, Kong Ju's counterattack was extremely simple and crude. Punch, punch, and punch again. With every punch, a layer of dermic seals would be destroyed. For a time, dense and terrifying explosions resounded while surging rays of light swept out like a river, and it created countless inconceivable scenes. On the other hand, Kong Ju's figure had already gradually approached Jianan. His imposing manner was too powerful, like a peerless blade that had been covered in dust for countless years had appeared out of thin air, and it emitted a brilliant light that was impossible to resist. Jianan did not retreat as Kong Ju's vital energy had firmly locked onto him. So long as he slightly revealed the slightest intention to retreat, he would instead fall into an extremely dangerous situation. As he watched Kong Ju approach, Jianan's expression became even more solemn. He pressed his palms together as if he was meditating. Strands of translucent Buddhist flames suddenly gushed out from his aged figure, and they were clear like colored glass. An aura of great wisdom, perfection, and willpower, disregarding life and death, offering the Dharma body to the Tao. Bang! Before him, the Rui Seven Treasures scepter rumbled, as if a kid had completely absorbed the energy of Jianan's will projection. So much so that the treasure shone brilliantly and shot out 7 types of divine light. In the Zen sect, the 7 treasures were gold, silver, coral, colored glass, clam, scarlet pearl, and agate. They respectively represented 7 supreme Buddhist profundities like wisdom, courage, willpower, evil suppression, auspiciousness, and so on and so forth. The Rui Seven Treasures scepter was refined from 7 types of natural divine materials that were born in the divine rank order, and it contained the energy of the rules within it. At this moment, Jianan utilized the energy of the cleansing flame of light to activate the Rui Seven Treasures scepter, and the 7 types of divine lights that erupted from it surged with the energy of the rules. Obviously, Kongju had already forced Jianan to the point of having no choice but to risk everything in a single throw with the intention of using this to break out of this situation. Bang! The 7 types of divine lights charged out like the dispersing rainbow-colored feathers of a sparrow, and they clanged like the sound of a divine weapon that could pierce through metal and split rocks as they slashed towards Kongju. Merely looking at it from afar caused Lin Sun and Fang Daoping's souls, mental states, and bodies to feel a piercing pain as if they were being torn apart, and their expressions instantly went pale. There was utterly no doubt that if such an attack was used against them, they would be utterly powerless to resist it, and they would be annihilated in an instant. At this moment, Kongju finally stopped moving. Since he started attacking until he stood still at this moment, he'd taken a total of 49 steps, and the might on his body rose ceaselessly during these 49 steps. Up until now, his entire body was dazzling, and his might covered the stars in the sky. At this moment, he flicked his sleeve lightly like an immortal brushing the clouds, and he was otherworldly and unrestrained. Instantly, a strand of sword chi flashed out, and it carried an indescribable brilliance that shocked this expanse of the starry sky. Time seemed as if it had stopped, and only a wisp of sword chi revealed its edge in eternity. It accumulated force for 4 to 9 times. All for the sake of executing this sword strike. Bang! The 7 divine lights that were like the feathers of a sparrow were extraordinarily terrifying. However, at this moment, they were like illusory bubbles that were shattered by this sword strike, and they erupted with a multicolored and gorgeous rain of light. The starry sky seemed as if it had been pierced open by this sword strike, and even the laws of the heavens and the earth were torn apart as they were unable to endure the might of this sword strike. Lin Sun and Fang Daoping were stunned while their gazes were dazed, and they were unable to recover from their shock for a long time. What sort of sword strike was this? It was formidable to the point it overturned their understanding and exceeded their imagination. It simply didn't belong to the world. Rumble! The starry sky overturned while the vast universe had collapsed a long time ago. Only the energy of destruction rumbled as it swept and seethed, and it only gradually returned to silence after a long time. This place had already transformed into an expanse of desolate and collapsed starry sky that seemed like ruins. Kongju was handsome like a young man, and his tall and straight figure stood there like a sword. The wine gourd at his waist had been taken off, and he was raising his head and drinking wildly in an unrestrained manner. After a long time, he smacked his lips and said, "It turns out that this last strike wasn't a desperate attempt, but a desperate attempt to send the Rui scepter away. Monk, do you think I care about it?" His voice was filled with disdain. Not far away from him, Jianan's Dharma form still maintained the posture of putting his palms together, but there were countless cracks that were as fine as spider webs on the surface of his body. "You don't care about it, but my Dhyana sect needs this treasure, and we can't lose it. Otherwise, I'll become the eternal sinner of my sect." Jianan's voice was calm. As he spoke, he raised his eyes slightly and looked past Kongju at Lin Sun, who was extremely far away. He said, "This boy is really like the master of the heart core." His words were filled with emotion, and the meaning was difficult to understand. Kongju shook his head, His achievements are destined to surpass his master. In those years, my elder brother once said that a disciple doesn't have to be inferior to his master. He has been waiting for ages for a person who can surpass his master. A person who can break the real ultimate way of Tao. A strange look appeared in Jianan's eyes. This Tao is full of killing and there is no solution. After that, crack. His Dharma form collapsed inch by inch, turning into ashes and drifting in the air. No solution? That's just an excuse for people like you to be incompetent. Kong Ju shook his head with a smile. He turned around to look at Lin Sun, Fang Daoping and others, and suddenly showed a bright smile, saying, "Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's go now." Tai Xian said, "I'm relieved to have you here." His indistinct will Dharma form also dissipated along with his voice. "Thank you, Senior." Lin Sun bowed to the place where Tai Xian disappeared. When he was in the ruins of fate, it was Tai Xian's Dharma form that escorted him all the way to the divine city of fate. Today, it was Tai Xian's Dharma form that appeared and blocked the killing of past Buddha Jianan in time. In just a few decades, he consumed 2 Dharma forms, which was bound to bring immeasurable damage to Tai Xian's Taoism. The price was huge. Brother Tai Xian is becoming more and more promising. Kong Ju smiled and sighed. He was the leader of the first group of strong people who crossed the starry sky at the beginning of primitive times. He and Tai Xian had known each other for a long time. "Uncle, have you completely repaired your state of mind?" Lin Sun asked. Kong Ju shook his head. "Sometimes I'm sober and sometimes I'm insane. It's really difficult to repair my state of mind." Lin Sun was stunned. "But you have proved the eternal Tao. How can there be any problem in your state of mind?" Kong Ju curled his lips helplessly. "The plot is too big and the ambition is too strong. How can my state of mind not have problems just thinking about the supreme power of this realm? But knowing this, I won't compromise. Just like Tai Xian, he has been trapped in the closed-door practice for many years and hasn't been able to get rid of himself. My state of mind is probably the same." Lin Sun nodded. He didn't understand and he knew that it was useless to ask. When it came to the state of mind, even if he knew, he couldn't help. However, at least Kong Ju was sober now, which made Lin Sun very happy. When he first met Kong Ju, he was even more miserable than a beggar on the street. He was muddle-headed, which made Lin Sun sad. "Hey!" Kong Ju was about to leave with Lin Sun and Fang Daoping, but he seemed to notice something. He stopped and turned his head to look into the distance. Boom! Almost at the same time, a terrifying eternal aura swept over from afar. It was aggressive, like a big sun moving horizontally. "Ha ha ha, I finally caught up with you. The person who came was Yuan Shukuan." He laughed wildly, but when he looked around, he couldn't help but frown. He immediately felt that something was wrong. Obviously, this place had just experienced a terrible battle. Then, he looked into the distance. Kong Ju, Lin Sun, and Fang Daoping all stood there and looked at him quietly. They didn't have any expression, let alone fear. This surprised Yuan Shukuan. He looked at Kong Ju immediately. "Whose will and dharma are you? Where is Tai Xian?" Tai Xian disappeared. Kong Ju smiled brightly. "As for me, my name is Kong Ju, the unprecedented Kong Ju." Yuan Changtian frowned and thought for a moment. "I seem to have heard of this name before, but I don't remember when there was an eternal realm cultivator like you in the eternal world." "Oh, I just reached the eternal realm a few years ago, so it's normal that you don't know me." Kong Ju sized up Yuan Shukuan and said, "You came at the right time. Why don't I send you on your way now?" Chapter 2975. Yuan Shukuan raised his brows and said coldly, "Although my Dharma form only has half of its power left, it's not something that just anyone can provoke." His figure was tall and handsome like a young man, and he held the great spirit-subduing sword in his arms. As he spoke, his aura spread out and covered the withered starry sky. Lin Sun and Fong Daoping's expressions became strange. It could be seen that Yuan Su Kuan really did not know anything. He did not know that Buddha Jianan's Dharma form, which was stronger and had better treasures than him, had been shattered by Kong Ju's sword. Only ignorance could lead to fearlessness. Kong Ju smiled and said, "Previously, the injuries on the Taishan Will Dharma form were left by this person, right?" Lin Sun and Fong Daoping nodded in unison. "He holds the great spirit-subduing sword, the supreme treasure of the Yuan clan. Its destructive power is shocking," Fong Daoping reminded. Kong Ju seemed to be deep in thought. "I see." Yuan Su Kuan said indifferently, "So, you also plan to follow in Kong Ju's footsteps?" Kong Ju chuckled and then threw his head back to the sky and laughed loudly. His laughter shook the universe and spread out wantonly, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Yuan Su Kuan's expression gradually darkened. Originally, he still had some doubts in his heart and planned to make a move after figuring out what had just happened. However, Kong Ju's impudent laughter had instantly enraged him. This was undoubtedly the greatest mockery and provocation to him. Clang! Yuan Su Kuan drew his sword, and the snow-white sword intent surged with the power of the rules. It was sharp and dazzling, illuminating the starry sky. "I want to see how long you can laugh for." He swung his sword and attacked with a godly aura. The surging eternal light surged, and his power was incomparably terrifying. Boom! The sword chi could be said to be earth-shattering. It was domineering, dazzling, and violent, and it bombarded like the sun. Kong Ju laughed loudly and patted the wine gourd hanging by his waist. Buzz! The wine gourd soared into the sky, and a vortex-like gray divine light gushed out from its mouth. In an instant, the sword chi that slashed over dissipated as if it had been gnawed by thousands of ants. Yuan Su Kuan's pupils constricted. This spacetime absolute had already punched out. It was a simple and direct attack. Boom! Yuan Su Kuan slashed out with the great spirit-subduing sword, but the tyrannical fist force shattered his sword chi, and his figure shook violently. Immediately afterward, a dense wave of fist energy covered the sky and the earth as it smashed toward Yuan Su Kuan. The strength of every single fist was unimaginably strong. It enveloped the surroundings and locked onto Yuan Su Kuan, making it impossible for Yuan Su Kuan to dodge or dodge. In the blink of an eye, Yuan Su Kuan's figure was engulfed by the waves of fist energy. Bang, bang, bang! Dense explosions constantly rang out, causing the starry sky to rumble and tremble. If one looked carefully, one would notice that even though Yuan Su Kuan had utilized all his strength, he was utterly unable to turn the situation around, and he was suppressed to the point he couldn't even raise his head. From afar, he looked like a ball being pounded by countless punches, Lin Sun gasped. His martial uncle was too fierce. Fong Daoping calmed down a little and said, "This fellow has exhausted most of his Dharma idol's power. If not for the great spirit-subduing sword in his hand, he would have exploded long ago." Just as he said this, boom! Yuan Su Kuan's Dharma idol exploded like a ball that had been smashed, turning into a rain of light that scattered all over the sky. Before he died, he only had time to let out an unwilling roar, "One day, I will definitely find you to settle this score." His voice traveled through the starry sky. Kong Ju spat, "Noob." Full of disdain. Compared to Jianan, Yuan Su Kuan wasn't much of a threat, but his tone was even bigger than Jianan's. It was no wonder that Kong Ju would look down on him so much. Clang! The great spirit-subduing sword that had lost control let out a clear sound and suddenly swept toward the depths of the starry sky. Kong Ju reached out to grab it, but he couldn't stop it. It really is a divine weapon born from the divine level order. As long as the divine level order is controlled by Genji, this sword won't be taken away by others. Kong Ju revealed a look of understanding, then he turned his head and asked unwillingly, "Along the way, were there other enemies chasing after you?" Lin Sun and Fong Daoping looked at each other and shook their heads. "We really don't know." Originally, Zhu Wenheng of the witchcraft sect also brought along an eternal realm figure, Tu Chi's Dharma. However, before he could display his might, he was taken away by the gate of exile. As for whether there would be more enemies on the way, it was hard to say. Alright, let's go back to Yuan clan first. Kong Ju shook his head in disappointment, then brought Lin Sun and Fang Daoping along, and teleported to the starry sky. The journey was peaceful, and there were no more twists and turns. In fact, such a killing tribulation was rare in the world. From the moment Lin Sun and the others left the starry sky where the 10 demonic territory was located, they were first besieged by the old monsters of the 10 immortal giants along the way, followed by Zen sects Kasayapa and witchcraft sects Zhu Wenheng. Such a killing tribulation could kill most of the transcendent realm figures in the world. However, for Lin Sun and the others, such a killing tribulation was the easiest to resolve. Whether it was Yuan Shukuan, Jianan, or Yuan Shukuan, their Dharma power was enough to kill all transcendent realm existences. Moreover, they came with treasures. Because of this, Tai Xian's Dharma power was finally unable to hold on and dissipated after being heavily injured. It could be said that if it weren't for Kong Ju's timely help, it would be almost impossible for Lin Sun and Fang Daoping to return to Yuan clan safely. On the way back to Yuan clan, Lin Sun finally learned that after the sect received Fang Daoping's request for help, they planned to send the 2 deputy pavilion masters, Xian Feiling and Du Guyong, to help. However, when they were about to act, they were stopped by Kong Ju, who suddenly appeared. Then, the scene of Kong Ju coming to rescue alone happened. Of course, Kong Ju also dispatched a Dharma power. With my intervention, even if any opponent is destroyed, those enemies can't blame Yuan clan's leader. It can buy more time for Yuan clan to clean up the internal problems. Kong Ju said softly, otherwise, after this battle, Yuan clan might have to face the threat of witchcraft, Zen sect, deity clan Genji, and the 8th heaven's 10 immortal giants. With Yuan clan's current foundation, it can't withstand such a torment. After listening, Lin Sun and Fang Daoping were both silent. This was reality. There were many problems in Yuan sect, but the key was in 2 aspects. One was that the 3 pavilion masters all had their own problems, and the other was the hidden dangers that came from the 10 great undying forces. In comparison, be it the Zen sect or the witch sect, the situation was much better than the Yuan sect. Under such circumstances, the Yuan sect indeed couldn't afford to suffer too much. It had to wait. Wait for Tai Xian to come out of seclusion, wait for Yu Beihai to prove his Tao, wait for Yan Ji to repair himself. When I get back this time, I'll first get rid of the internal troubles in the sect and rectify the stubborn diseases and tumors in the sect. Lin Sun's eyes were full of killing intent. With his current cultivation, he was no longer afraid of transcendent realm great perfection existences. It was time for him to fight against Fu Wenli, Qi Shaoyun, Qi Wen, and the other 10 immortal magnate. This was not only to clear the internal troubles of the Yuan sect, but also to take revenge for himself. Voodoo cult. Not long after the Gate of Exile had swept away priest Tu Kai's Dharma form, the shaman cult's bigwigs found out about it. I actually failed. How could this be? That's a divine rank order energy, yet it was taken away by Fang Xiuwen's inheritor just like that? Send more people to chase after it. The bigwigs of the shaman cult were extremely angry, and their faces were ashen. It's too late to chase after it now. Don't forget that we're not the only ones eyeing this divine rank order energy. There's also the Zen sect, the 8th heaven's top 10 forces, the God clan, the Minamoto clan, someone sighed. In the end, the shaman cult had already lost the chance to snatch the divine rank order. Zen sect. When Maha Kasayapa saw the Rui scepter of 7 treasures returning alone, he knew that Jianan's Dharma form had also failed. How could this be? Jia Yi frowned. Even though his state of mind was as firm as a rock, he couldn't help but feel unwilling at this moment. On this day, when the Zen sect learned that, past Buddha Jianan's Dharma form was destroyed, the entire Zen sect fell into a great commotion. Similar news also spread to the 8th heaven. The Wang clan, Zhongli clan, Fu clan, Qi clan, and the other 10 immortal magnates were also shocked and angry. Not only were all the participants who participated in the immortal Taoist battle annihilated, even the old monsters who led the team were killed. This dealt a heavy blow to the immortal Taoist battle. Although the 10 immortal magnates had been in the 8th heaven for countless years, with a terrifying foundation and great power, the most powerful existence in their clan was only a transcendent realm great perfection expert. But just one immortal Taoist battle made each of them lose such a pillar and 5 nirvana realm great perfection expert. Such a loss was no less than a serious injury. Lin Sun. This damned beast. We can't let this go. I just don't know if this boy has already been killed by the shaman cult, Zen sect, or Genji divine clan. Such discussions continued to resound among the 10 immortal magnates. Until many days later. Whether it was the shaman cult, Zen sect, Genji divine clan, or the 10 immortal magnates, they all received a clear message: Lin Sun and Fang Daoping returned to Yuan sect alive. All of a sudden, these major forces almost couldn't believe it. Who could have imagined that Lin Sun could survive such a heavy killing tribulation? This news was too sensational, causing these major forces to be in turmoil. They couldn't calm down for a long time. Spirit sect. When they found out that Lin Sun had returned to the origin sect alive, Ruo Su, Qing Yu, Moon in the Well, and the other disciples of the Heart sect heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. They were completely at ease, and they couldn't conceal their joy. It was also on this day that Ji Shanhai, who learned of this news, didn't delay any longer. He left the spirit sect and embarked on his journey back to the 9th heaven. No matter what, Lin Sun had become famous among these major forces. As the news spread, many forces in the 7th heaven, 8th heaven, and even the 9th heaven began to pay attention to his existence. Regardless of whether he has the monthly votes or not, he will continue to add chapters tonight. Chapter 2976. Yuan Sect. After walking out of the transmission formation, Kong Ju left on his own. The successor of Yuan sect, who guarded the transmission formation, didn't notice Kong Ju's existence at all. The return of Lin Sun, Fang Daoping, and Li Zhen also caused an uproar in Yuan sect. In front of the central hall, Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, Yu Xing, and other deputy pavilion masters, Qin Wuyu, Yu Wuchou, and Sang Zhongxue, as well as familiar faces such as Tao Ling, Feng Qixi, and Drifting Yunfeng all gathered. When they saw Lin Sun and the others, they couldn't help but smile from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone, thank you for your hard work. Xian Feiling greeted them with a big smile and led Lin Sun and the others into the central hall. When they were seated, the tables in front of them were filled with delicacies. This was a welcome banquet. As for Yuan Changtian, Yun Tianming, Chao Beidu, and others who had participated in the immortal Tao battle with Lin Sun, they were all ignored. Come, let's have a toast. Xian Feiling raised his glass with a big smile. Everyone agreed loudly and toasted to their heart's content. After 3 rounds of wine, Xian Feiling asked about the immortal Tao battle. Only Lin Sun and Li Zhen knew what had happened in the 10 Devil territory. Li Zhen had always been quiet, so Lin Sun had to tell her. Lin Sun sorted out his thoughts and told them about what had happened in the 10 years after he entered the 10 Devil territory. When they learned that it was Yun Tianming and Chao Beidu who had leaked the news of Lin Sun and provoked Wang Juhuan and other top 10 immortal giants to besiege them, they were all furious and gloomy. When they learned that Lin Sun had killed Yun Tianming and Chao Beidu, all the people present cheered and said that such traitors should be killed without any hesitation. When they heard that Lin Sun had killed the 10 immortal giants, the witchcraft sect, and the Zen sect one by one in the following years, they were all stunned. All the people present were in a daze for a while. They looked at Lin Sun with a strange look in their eyes. When Lin Sun talked about the series of things that had happened in the heavenly devil territory, they were surprised and amused. No one had expected that an otherworldly goddess like Ji Shanhai would give up the god rank order so willingly. Who would have thought that Yuan Changtian would still be able to endure the humiliation he had suffered at that time? After listening to Lin Sun's story, the atmosphere in the hall was boiling. Our Yuan sect can be said to have achieved a complete victory in the eternal Tao battle. How many years has it been? It's finally our Yuan sect's turn to hold our heads high. It seems like the shaman cult, Zen cult, and the 10 great undying giants have suffered heavy casualties. Xian Feiling, Duguyong, and the other old monsters laughed heartily, and the rest of the people present were also overjoyed. Lin Sun's performance in the Immortal Tao battle had brought honor to the Yuan sect. After a long time, only then did the lively atmosphere calm down. What happened on the way back? Xian Feiling looked at Fang Daoping. Previously, they had only received a message from Fang Daoping asking for help. They did not know what they had experienced along the way. The others also looked at Fang Daoping. Fang Daoping drank a glass of wine and told them everything that had happened along the way. From being chased by the 10 great undying giants, to fighting with Jia Yi and Zhu Wei, to being obstructed by Yuan Shukuan and Jianan, he told them all about it. During this process, the atmosphere in the hall gradually became oppressive and silent. Everyone's expression was also filled with anger, resentment, solemnity, disbelief, and so on. Occasionally, they looked at Lin Sun with subtle changes in their eyes. They seemed to realize that Lin Sun, who had just ascended to the transcendent realm, had such a heaven-defying combat power. He alone killed a group of old monsters in the transcendent realm great perfection. He even trapped Yuan Shukuan's will form with the forbidden magical ability. To them, this was simply shocking and unbelievable. It was completely beyond their imagination. If Fang Daoping did not say all this, they would not dare to believe it. When Fang Daoping said that Tai Xian's will form dissipated, all the big shots couldn't restrain their killing intent, and their faces were extremely gloomy. Even though they knew that it was Lin Sun's martial uncle who saved the situation in time and resolved the murderous disaster, they still looked gloomy. They are taking advantage of our Yuan sect. Duguyong was angry, and his voice was like thunder. After knowing all this, they were all enraged. This was not only related to the safety of Lin Sun and others, but also the reputation of Yuan sect. For the deity-level order, everyone will snatch it at all costs. Xian Feiling took a deep breath and his eyes were cold. Whether it's witchcraft cult, Zen sect, deity clan Yuan, or the 10 great undying giants, we must settle this score with them in the future. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the internal situation. We can't rush this matter. At least for now, we can only endure it. Duguyong on the side reminded. His words made the atmosphere in the hall heavy. If Yuan sect was still as prosperous as before, how could they be treated like this? How could they still endure after being suppressed like this? It's not that we can't endure it, but we must do something. Otherwise, forget about taking revenge, the sect will be in chaos first. Xian Feiling's eyes flickered. Xian Feiling's eyes flickered. Speaking of this, he looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun, you have made great contributions to the sect this time, and you have reached the transcendent realm. It is more than enough for you to serve as an elder of the 3 pavilions of the sect. Tomorrow, I will promote you with all the fellow disciples here. After a pause, he said coldly, even if Fu Wenli and the others want to object to this matter, they can't. Everyone couldn't help but nod. With Lin Sun's achievements in the Immortal Tao battle, not to mention being an elder, it wouldn't be a problem for him to make an exception for the position of Deputy Pavilion Master. Speaking of this, the restriction power that covered the outside of the central hall fluctuated. Xian Feiling waved his hand and removed the restriction power. Outside the hall, Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, Tang Qiu, and other influential figures were already standing there. I heard that Brother Fong has returned to the sect with Li Zhen and Lin Sun, so I came to congratulate you. Fu Wenli said that he was here to congratulate them, but his expression was full of indifference. Looking at the expressions of others, most of them were the same. Suddenly, the atmosphere inside and outside the hall became silent and oppressive. Fong Daoping stood up and said indifferently, "There's no need to congratulate us. We're having a banquet. If there's nothing else, please go back." Fong Daoping refused without hesitation. Fu Wenli's face darkened and he said, "Unfortunately, in addition to congratulating us, I do have one more thing to ask Lin Sun." As he said, he walked straight into the hall with Qi Xiaoyun and others, which made Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, and other people sitting here gloomy. Fu Wenli didn't care about them at all. He stepped to the table of Lin Sun, looked down at him with cold eyes, and said, "Lin Sun, do you know your crime?" In a word, it was full of judgment. Lin Sun drank up the wine in his cup and put it on the table. Then he stood up slowly and said, "What crime have I committed?" Fu Wenli snorted coldly, "Do you really think others don't know? Did you cruelly kill Peak Master Yun Tianfeng and Elder Chao Beidu?" Xian Feiling, Fong Daoping, and others all understood that Fu Wenli and his party were obviously here to denounce Lin Sun. Lin Sun immediately laughed. "Yes." Fu Wenli said coldly, "How dare you laugh? As a deacon of Yuankong Pavilion, you offended your superiors and used despicable means to kill 2 elders of the sect. You deserve to die. I'm here to take you away and punish you according to the rules of the sect, so as to comfort the souls of Yun and Chao in heaven. Fu Wenli, with your status, you actually dare to make irresponsible remarks and slander others? Don't you feel ashamed?" Xian Feiling couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up straight and said with cold eyes, "Chao Beidu and Yun Tianming, the 2 traitors, colluded with foreign enemies and trapped Lin Sun in a desperate situation. How could such despicable and shameless people become innocent people in your mouth?" As Xian Feiling stood up, Du Guyong and other people in the hall also stood up and glared at Fu Wenli and her party. The atmosphere had also become extremely tense. "Traitors? Xian Feiling, have you participated in the Immortal Tao battle and seen all this with your own eyes?" Fu Wenli said indifferently, "Besides Lin Sun and Li Zhen, everyone else here doesn't know what happened. But we can be sure that Chao Beidu and Yun Tianming were killed by Lin Sun. Moreover, Lin Sun just admitted that according to the rules of the sect, wantonly killing fellow disciples without being interrogated by the Origin Sky Pavilion is a heinous crime." "Did Yuan Changtian tell you this?" Lin Sun asked suddenly. Fu Wenli narrowed his eyes and said, "It doesn't matter who they are. What matters is that you have violated the rules of the sect and should be punished." Lin Sun laughed. "I've expected that Deputy Pavilion Master Fu would not miss such an opportunity to attack me. Please have a look at who these people are." He waved his sleeve. One by one, the spirits that were completely imprisoned and in a coma appeared in everyone's sight. When Fu Wenli saw the appearance of these spirits, his face suddenly changed. He raised his hand to collect these spirits, but Lin Sun dodged in advance. At the same time, Fong Daoping stood beside Lin Sun and said coldly, "Fu Wenli, what are you doing? These are the clansmen of our Fu clan." Fu Wenli said angrily, "But now, Lin Sun destroyed their bodies and imprisoned their spirits. This is unforgivable." Lin Sun said, "Deputy Fu Wenli is right. These are the strong practitioners of the Fu clan who participated in the Immortal Tao battle. They wanted to kill me together with other participants. Unfortunately, they were all killed. Didn't Yuan Changtian tell you about this?" Fu Wenli's chest heaved up and down. He tried to calm himself down, and his eyes flickered. "Lin Sun, let go of these people of the Fu clan, and I will give you a chance to clear your name." What he meant was to exchange this with Lin Sun. But Lin Sun shook his head with a smile. "Deputy Pavilion Head Fu, you're wrong. I didn't take the primordial spirits of these Fu clansmen to threaten you. As a deacon of Yuankong Pavilion, I dare not go against my superior and threaten a deputy pavilion head. After a pause, he glanced at everyone in the hall and said, I just want to tell you that the truth will be revealed as long as you search the souls of these spirits whether Chao Beidu and Yun Tianming are traitors or not. His voice resounded clearly in the hall. All of a sudden, the faces of Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, and Qi Wen changed suddenly. More updates. Chapter 2977. The memories of practitioners could be searched from their primordial spirit. Memory didn't lie. As long as Yun Tianming and Chao Beidu had contacted these strong practitioners, the truth must exist in their memories. This was also the reason why Fu Wenli's face changed. It could be said that Lin Sun's hidden trump card was a direct hit. Fang Daoping and Li Zhen were stunned. They never imagined that Lin Sun would still have this trick up his sleeve when he killed the 10 Immortal Realm powerhouses. Xian Feiling said directly, in that case, start searching their souls. The truth will be revealed. He stepped forward and was about to start. Wait! Fu Wenli's face was gloomy. Xian Feiling, how can the primordial spirits of the strong practitioners of Fu family be humiliated like this? I'd rather kill them than let them be humiliated. Xian Feiling said directly, okay, you do it. Fu Wenli's eyes widened in anger and he was speechless for a while. How could he have the heart to kill his own clansmen? In particular, these strong practitioners at the peak of Nirvana realm were the backbone of the Fu family. In fact, there's no need to go through so much trouble. At this moment, Lin Sun said with a smile, I have already searched their souls and collected some memory pictures. You will know when you see them. As he said, he took out a jade slip and crushed it gently. Bang! A light curtain appeared. In the picture, a strong practitioner of Fu family stood between mountains and rivers and said excitedly, Yuan sect has sent the news that Lin Sun is now in the Wanha mountain range of the eastern demon region. A strong practitioner of Fu family nearby asked, Is the news true? The news came from Chao Beidu, a loyal dog of our clan. He wouldn't dare to joke about such a thing. The image then disappeared. Everyone in the hall was filled with anger. Fu Wenli's face was extremely ugly. He stared at Lin Sun angrily. Chao Beidu deserves to be killed by you because of his betrayal. But what did Yun Tianming do? He was still arguing. Lin Sun smiled and said, Don't worry, Deputy Pavilion Master Fu. As he said, he took out another jade slip and crushed it. Another light screen appeared in front of everyone. On the screen, a participant from the Dongwang clan spoke. The news the Fu clan spoke of is true. Earlier, Yun Tianming also sent a message over, proving this point. Well, let's go to meet with Wang Juehuan. In any case, we must kill Lin Sun. Some experts from the Dongwang clan in the vicinity agreed. At this point, the image also collapsed and disappeared. Dongwang Qing, who had followed Fu Wenli's group all the way here, saw everything and his face darkened. He was both shocked and furious. Looking at Fu Wenli again, her face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She was furious to the extreme. In the face of this iron-like evidence, even if he wanted to argue, he couldn't find any words. Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, Tang Qiu, and the other important figures also had unpleasant expressions. They came here to denounce Lin Sun. Originally, they wanted to take this opportunity to knock Lin down. Even if they couldn't kill him, they would at least make him lose a layer of skin. But who would have thought that the situation would be reversed? Now, not only does it prove that Lin Sun was framed by these two traitors, it also proves that the 10 immortal giants are crazy enough to want to kill the successor of our Yuan clan. Their evil intentions are worthy of death. Xian Feiling said coldly, Lin Sun, hand over the primordial spirit of the Fu clan's expert to Vice Pavilion Master Fu. I want to see, in the eyes of Vice Pavilion Master Fu, who is a member of the Fu clan. Is the person more important, or is the successor of the sect and the rules more important? Yes. Lin Sun immediately threw the imprisoned primordial spirits on the ground in front of Fu Wenli. At this moment, all eyes in the great hall were on Fu Wenli. His face was gloomy and his hair was standing on end. Everyone could see the intense conflict in his heart. At this moment Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, and the others couldn't interrupt. Xian Feiling obviously wanted to use this matter to denounce Fu Wenli. Moreover, he already had the upper hand. Under such circumstances, no matter who interfered, they would be in trouble. In short, it depended on Fu Wenli's decision. After a long time, in the oppressive and silent atmosphere, Fu Wenli said in a hoarse voice, "These clansmen deliberately set up the successor of the sect. They are utterly heartless and deserve to die. Today, I will put righteousness before family." The last sentence seemed to be squeezed out of his chest. After that, he stretched out his hand and clapped. Boom! The 5 imprisoned primordial spirits belonging to the Fu clan were directly killed and turned into light rain and disappeared. Many people's hearts trembled and their faces changed. This Fu Wenli was really cruel. Xian Feiling nodded and said, "In the face of the truth, Vice Pavilion Master Fu was able to correct his mistakes and restrain himself before it was too late. Now you put righteousness before family. Let's call it a day." In fact, he felt a little regretful in his heart. If Fu Wenli dared to try to protect those strong Fu clan, he would definitely take this opportunity to beat Fu Wenli in the name of the sect. Fu Wenli's face at the moment could be described as livid and indifferent. He looked at Lin Sun. "Deacon Lin, take care." After that, he was about to leave. Xian Feiling said, "Vice Pavilion Master Fu, wait a minute. Anything else?" Fu Wenli frowned. Xian Feiling said casually, "Xiao Beidu betrayed the sect and has now been executed by Lin Sun. This is equivalent to having an empty elder position in the Origin Pavilion. We've already discussed this. Lin Sun's achievements in the Dao Battle of Immortality this time are first, and he has made an extraordinary contribution to the Yuan sect. Therefore, we've decided that from today onwards, Lin Sun will take up the position of an elder and replace Xiao Beidu." Fu Wenli's pupils shrank. "Are you asking for my opinion?" "No, I just want you to know in advance," Xian Feiling said with a smile. "According to the rules of the sect, those who have made great contributions can be promoted as an exception." Fu Wenli clenched his hands tightly in his sleeves. After a while, he controlled his anger and said, "If I don't stop you, Brother Xian, are you still going to promote this young man to the position of Vice Pavilion Master and replace me?" Xian Feiling sneered. "Vice Pavilion Master Fu, please don't say that out of anger. However, according to Lin Sun's promotion trend, it may not take long for him to replace any of us 9 Vice Pavilion Masters." Humph! Fu Wenli didn't want to say anything more and left in a huff. He was worried that he would vomit blood out of anger if he stayed any longer. Seeing this, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, Tang Qiu and others also left, too ashamed to stay any longer. Unfortunately, as soon as they walked out of the hall, Lin Sun said with a smile, "I forgot to tell you that the 10 immortal giants who participated in the immortal Taoism battle were all wiped out. Even the old monsters who led the team were all killed. That scene was really tragic." Outside the hall, Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun and others were stiff as if they were struck by lightning. After a while, they left in a hurry. In the hall, there was a burst of laughter. How could they not know that Fu Wenli and others were about to go crazy with anger? The banquet continued, and the atmosphere became more and more lively. After this incident, everyone could finally breathe a sigh of relief in their hearts. However, for Lin Sun, this was far from enough. The biggest purpose of his return this time was to completely wipe out the enemies in the sect. However, Lin Sun also knew that this matter could not be rushed. He just returned to the sect today, so he couldn't be too anxious. Until the end of the banquet, Lin Sun was about to return to his cave residence when Xian Feiling stopped him. "Didn't Fang Daoping tell you that in this immortal Taoism battle, the one who makes the most contributions for the sect will get a reward from the sect? Xian Feiling said with a smile. Lin Sun patted his forehead. I almost forgot about this. Originally, according to our original plan, we were going to reward you with a bottle of innate divine dew, which was born in the divine level order of the sect. But now it seems that the reward is a little shabby. Xian Feiling said with a smile. So, we unanimously decided that, except for the innate divine dew, we will all support you when you compete for the position of Yuanqing Pavilion Master one day. What do you think? As if worried that Lin Sun did not understand, he added, You are the successor of Fang Xiyuan and also the successor of Yuan sect. When you become Yuanqing Pavilion Master, your enemy will also be Yuan sect's enemy. Do you understand? Lin Sun was shocked. How could he not understand? This clearly meant that Yuan sect would also be his backing when he went to deal with his enemies in the future. The weight of this promise was far greater than some treasures. Lin Sun took a deep breath, cupped his hands and saluted. Thank you, senior. Xian Feiling said with a smile. In fact, before you entered Yuan sect, your third senior sister Rosu had already expressed some ideas. In your third senior sister's view, Yuan sect is troubled by internal and external troubles. But if you take the position of Yuanqing Pavilion Master, you will definitely lead Yuan sect to restore its former glory in the future, and even surpass other ancestral courts. At that time, we old guys were skeptical. After all, at that time, you were only in the ancestor realm, a little guy who had not even set foot on the immortal path. How could your third senior sister's words convince us old guys? But we decided to give you a chance to prove yourself. Of course, this is also a chance for Yuan sect. Now that you have proved yourself, we old guys will naturally do our best to support you. These words made Lin Sun's mood fluctuate. He did not expect that before he came to Yuan sect, his third senior sister had already talked with these old guys of Yuan sect in secret. This is innate divine dew. Every 10,000 years, only 10 drops of divine level order can be condensed. What is in this bottle are the 10 drops of divine dew collected in the past 10,000 years. Xian Feiling took out a jade bottle and handed it to Lin Sun. This treasure has an immeasurable magical effect on the cultivation of transcendent realm. When fighting, once your strength is exhausted, you only need to swallow a drop, and you can instantly recover to the peak state. You should cherish it. Lin Sun took it with both hands and bowed to thank him again. His heart was warm. Go. Since you have returned to the sect, you don't have to worry about anything else. Even if the sky falls, we old guys will carry it, said Xian Feiling. Lin Sun was about to leave, but he suddenly remembered something. He hesitated for a moment and said, Senior, there is one more thing that I need your advice on. What is it? Lin Sun said in a low voice, When I was in the 10-demon territory, I captured the spirit of the 2 sons of God of Wen clan and Song clan. Now they are still suppressed in my treasure. How do you think I should deal with them? Xian Feiling was stunned. After a while, he said with a strange look, You are really bold. There were emotions and amazement. I just came back from my hometown, so it's a little late.